Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Dark Art Society podcast. I'm your host, Chet, and this week we got a fun one coming up. I talk George A. Romero's 1978 classic horror film, Dawn of the Dead. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I'm a super geek for it, so I know all the trivia. And I know Ryan's a fan as well. So I've been wanting to talk about this film for a long time. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it before you listen to this, because I'm sure there's spoilers, but it's so good. It's a classic and worthy of discussion. What's going on? Let's see, this is my first day off of my tiny vacation. I usually take a couple weeks off around the holidays, but I didn't really take any time off this time. I only had, 3 days maybe I was able to take. So yeah, now I'm just filling orders, getting back on commissions. Got this little guy back here I'm working on. I got a cover story on High Fructose that's coming out this month. High Fructose magazine, and they put a painting like this on the cover, and they just wanted to talk to me about my flower skull painting. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to do this one here that I had planned on doing for my Life and Death show, but didn't have time to do. And it was all traced out on the board. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to paint that thing because these are so much fun. And that article's coming out, so there might be interest in these skull flowers, so maybe I could sell it. Anyway, that's what I've been doing on my spare time. That's about it. Let's see. If you want to support the podcast, please go to patreon.com/darkartsociety and join for as little as $1. If you join at the $5 and above level, you get a 20% discount. I can't find a skull. To a skull shop, skull, SKULLSHOPPE.com. I don't know what happened to my skull. It's around here somewhere. I've got a bunch of them. Anyway, if you join at the $5 and above level, you get 20% off, and they are the most amazing skulls ever. What else? Oh, if you want to support my Patreon, it's patreon.com/ChetZar. Got all kinds of stuff on there, too. You can join for as little as $1. And that's it. So let's get on with it. Here we go. Me and Ryan Peterson talking about 1978's Dawn of the Dead. Hope you enjoy it. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, Chet. Does it go more dun, dun, dun? Or is it a steady
Dun, 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 dun.
That's right.
Anyway, how you doing?
Doing well.
Little,
A little under the weather, like I was saying.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah, please forgive the coughing that may inevitably come about. But I'm hanging in there.
I appreciate you coming on to talk about this. I'm such a I can't, I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about this movie. Finally, I've been wanting to talk about 1978 Dawn of the Dead, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead from 1978. I've been so excited. I want to do this episode for years now because I'm just such a huge, I don't think I'm a bigger geek for any other movie. This might be like my main geek out movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It hit me right at the right time. 11 years old, I saw it.
11.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a critical time because that's when I saw The Howling.
Oh, yeah.
And around that time. And, okay, so tell me all that you remember about seeing it. Where were you? Did you see it in a San Pedro theater?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget which theater it was, but it was somewhere around where we used to go see movies. It could have been Torrance nearby San Pedro, but I got my stepdad to take me. We would go see movies usually every Friday. He'd take me to see a horror movie or science fiction because he liked science fiction. I liked horror. And so I got him to take me to see Dawn of the Dead. And it just was like, it was the movie that made me want to get into makeup effects. That was like probably the main movie that got me into effects. It was that and The Howling actually were the two big ones. Cause it was like at that point you see that the gore was just so thrilling and like, how did they do that? And so shocking that I just was like, I have to know how they do that. This looks so much fun. And then with The Howling, it was like all the animatronic stuff and the bladders that was like, oh, this is the other kind of side of it. And I was just, both of those things was after seeing both of those movies, because The Howling wasn't that much longer after, was it? This came out in 79.
So Dawn of the Dead came out, 79, because it was part of that Newsweek special Summer of Fear issue. And The Howling came out, I think, in 81, and American Werewolf in London came out in latter part of 81, 82.
Okay.
It was that beautiful, beautiful explosion of makeup effects, ingenuity. What did you know about Dawn of the Dead prior to seeing it? What made you so excited?
I was a big Night of the Living Dead fan. Like I was at that point, I was fully into horror movies. I had a subscription to Famous Monsters of Filmland. I don't think I couldn't have gotten I had a Fangoria subscription, but that was probably a couple of years later. But I was a huge fan since and that's another one I want to do is Night of the Living Dead. That's a whole other episode because I love that movie. It's like they're kind of neck and neck for me, these two movies, as far as influential movies.
So you did see it chronologically? You did see Night of the Living Dead before Dawn of the Dead?
Yeah.
I don't think I did.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw it when I was on TV. They used to play it on TV. And I saw it when I was really young, like so young that I remember getting out of the bath, 'cause it was Sunday, school was the next day, and I was sitting in my little tighty-whitey underwear in front of the TV watching this movie. And it was, at that age when you're you don't, that's like 5 years old or something when you're sitting in your underwear in front of the TV like that, and your hair's all wet. But that movie freaked me out. Like it really, really creeped me out. I don't know. Again, it was like I was probably the right age to be that scared by it. And, over the years, I've just would watch it every time it came on TV. And, what's cool about these movies is that they're really good movies, even though they're low budget. They're well made. And what I like about that is, and I've said this before on the podcast, you can be a kid and see a movie that sucks, but you like it because you saw it at the right time.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of bad horror movies that we all love. So,
especially in the 70s, in the 70s. Oh, there's so many good bad ones.
Yeah. and it's like those movies, you get older and you're like, oh, this movie is a piece of shit, but I love it. And what I like about Night and Dawn especially is like you grow up and you realize like these are great films. They're really well made. When you get past, there's some flaws because of the budgetary issue. Other than that, they're really well crafted and well made. And so as you get older, there's more for you to enjoy and get into and learn about with a great movie, instead of like loving a piece of shit where it's like, as you get older, you're kind of laughing at it. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And, you texted me about that documentary about Dawn of the Dead. And that's, like I said, it's on my box set of Dawn of the Dead that I just bought a few months ago. And that documentary, it examines the opening scenes of Night of the Living Dead. And it's amazing how, there's the there's the viewer of the movie, and then there's like the critique or the analyzer. You start analyzing how it's made, and I don't think I fully appreciated George Romero's filmmaking like I maybe should have. So
Mm.
what you were just saying, I was slower
Mm.
to appreciate it. Not that I didn't think he was a good filmmaker, he was, and but I didn't. He didn't seem to have an identifiable style to me,
Right. Mm-hmm.
and so it's like I didn't. I never really had something to hold on to. But when I saw that documentary, and I've been messing around with experimental films lately, and also, and I remember this hit me in college when I took a filmmaking course. When you get down and try to just get into actually making a film, editing it, doing everything, it's hard.
Yeah.
And filming it, getting the continuity, getting the right angles, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're humbled.
Yeah.
And so I've been messing around with something currently. And so when I saw that documentary and it showed his compositions and the tight editing, you're right. It was really good.
Yeah.
And it's like he was just a young guy.
I know.
Hadn't done a film really before. I guess he had done a few commercials and things, but
Well,
but this was
before night.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah. That was like his
And
first.
so it's like you're right. I looked at it with new eyes
Mm.
last week when
Oh, cool.
when I watched it again, and I thought, yeah, there's something to this. And with Dawn of the Dead, it's like the logistics of filmmaking are easy to overlook how difficult they
Yeah,
are.
especially on a low budget. I was
Yes.
reading up the budget. They said apparently the producer was saying it was over $1.5 million, but he was saying they were saying that to like hype it or something or
For Dawn of the Dead, or
yeah, for Dawn.
yeah.
And it was actually like 600,000, which is
Yeah.
nothing. And it was all people they knew in Pittsburgh. That was the other great thing about both of those movies is they're made outside of Hollywood, completely outside of the Hollywood system. And it's just like a bunch of friends got together that were all kind of in the commercial industry. And they had like, at least for night, they had cameras, they had lights, they had bought all this stuff over the years doing beer commercials and stuff, which is what they were doing. So they're like, hey, we have all this equipment. Let's make a movie. And they all put, I don't know, what was it? $5,000 each they pitched in. And that was like something like that. Or something like that.
Or Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, for Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, we should just stick with, with
Well,
Dawn of the Dead. I keep getting...
I think that's so beautiful. I love, because that really is like you're playing. You're with your friends.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're being creative. And I think that's probably why George Romero seems like such a cool, nice guy.
Right.
Because we were both commenting on that. He just seemed like someone that you and I both would have really liked to have worked for.
Yeah.
But just to be friends with, just to hang out with.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, he seems like
he didn't seem jaded or overly cynical or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he seemed like a really nice guy. And everybody said that about him too when they're interviewing.
Did you ever meet him?
No, I never met him. You?
I saw him, but I never met him. I was at Jerry's Famous Deli in Studio City. I used to go there occasionally.
Oh,
on
no
weekends.
way. And you saw
So
him?
every Saturday I'd try to go to someplace to have breakfast, and Jerry's Famous Deli was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And Dupar's and the place that Mitch and we used to go to in Burbank, but I forgot the name. But anyway, I saw him at Jerry's Famous Deli, and he's tall.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
He's about 6'5" or 6".
Mm-hmm.
And his hair was pulled back in a ponytail. He had gray hair.
So this was probably the 90s?
This was around 95 or 6. Yeah.
I remember
And
that one.
it was thrilling, but I'm not one of those people that can go up and introduce myself. And so I just kind of admired him from a couple tables over.
Was he alone?
No, he was with some people, but I didn't recognize who he was with.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
it made me happy. It was pretty thrilling. I was excited to see that.
I mean, I would have. I don't know if I would have been able to control myself. I would have probably gone over and said something, I think.
I wish I had, just to kind of. I've fantasized about being on like Hollywood Boulevard or something and meeting John Carpenter on the corner of an intersection, and just quickly, because he can be kind of a curmudgeon,
Mm-hmm.
and just say, "Hey, I just want to thank you for your movies and your music," and then just leave it at that.
Right.
Before he could, bark back or say something that just thank him. And I kind of wish I would have done that to Romero. But this is what I think we need to discuss. Um, I I'm slow to appreciate George Romero. So you were much more in tuned with what he was presenting at a
Mhm.
young age. So I never saw Dawn of the Dead in the theater,
Oh, wow.
nor did I see him chronologically. And I saw Dawn of the Dead on a
Hmm.
VHS tape. So your experience is very different from mine. And also, zombies and the undead have been really influential to you because I
Oh,
know you've
yeah.
talked about that. So
Yeah. I'm a huge fan.
okay, so go back when when you finally saw the movie and you're excited. Yeah, tell me a little more about that.
Yeah, it was just, the violence was shocking in a good way. Because I remember when I was younger, the first R-rated movie I saw was Death Race 2000,
Mm,
and I was probably 9 or 8 or I don't know.
hmm
And I remember I saw it at my a relative had on TV. Remember on TV? It was the first cable. There was
Oh,
on TV and then there was select TV.
okay.
This was before regular cable, and it was just like one channel. It was a box. It was a cable box, and it was on TV. And they would. This is like in the '70s.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. It was like the first, and it was like a relative that they kind of had money, so they could afford it. And we watched Death Race 2000, and there was that scene where the guy peels out on the guy in the riverbed, and all the blood comes up.
yeah.
And I remember that like giving me this bad feeling. Like it was the first time I saw something violent like that. Like it gave me this bad feeling inside. It was weird, and it
Yeah.
just it kind of shocked me, even though it's pretty tame, relatively speaking, especially compared to Dawn.
But Death Race 2000, I caught that later.
Hmm.
And I really kind of enjoyed it.
It's a great
But
movie.
but it has kind of this air of like danger to it
Yeah,
in that
totally.
it's like the nudity was kind of unconventional and surprising. The violence kind of
Yep.
came out of nowhere. So it was kind of like a real kind of edgy adult film.
That's
Yeah.
true. And I know as kids we all knew about it too, and it was like we would fantasize about like what if that happened and how scary it would be if that happened. Like during this race you had to stay inside or else, or even if you stayed inside you could probably get killed somehow. Like
Mm,
the idea that it's just like nowhere was safe.
yeah. Wow.
And I remember that just dangerous is a great way to describe that movie because that's kind of it felt like a dangerous film. But anyway, so by the time I got to Dawn, the violence didn't give me that bad feeling. It kind of gave me that thrilling feeling. Like, oh
Mm,
my God. It just like
mhm.
the first 15 minutes of that film is almost perfect. Aside from a few like budget, but like again, I feel like the flaws are just budgetary where it's like some of the background actors are, not great here and there. But if the first 15 minutes up to you start in that newsroom and all the chaos going on and it's just everything's collapsing. Then you got the two guys talking on the set,
Mhm.
and on a side note, it was so ahead of its time in that way to where it's like the people there's a scientist and then there was a regular person, and the scientist was saying like these dead people are coming back to life and you have to destroy them, and all the people didn't want to accept that, so everyone's like yelling at him, and it's so like COVID where it's like nobody trusts the government or trusts the powers that be or the scientists, and they don't want to accept that you have to get this shot or whatever. It's totally like that. Like they don't want to accept that you have to kill your loved ones that have been killed, and that's
Mhm.
really the reason everything fell apart is because that's the impression you get, is that it happened so fast and people did not want to accept what needed to be done in order to stop it, to stop
Mm.
the spread.
And what a great way for exposition, because
Yeah.
that's what they were establishing, that
Yeah.
foreshadowing that this is about something really horrible happening. The dead
Yeah.
are walking around, and I agree with you totally. I love the first 15 minutes, and I think the tenement scene is my favorite.
Oh yeah, same. That's probably, yeah, that's my favorite. It's
It's so but back to what you're saying. We'll get to I want to talk about it, but back to what you're saying is I love how that film opens with her in a dream. It almost makes you wonder if the whole thing isn't a nightmare.
right.
But you know it's probably that wasn't probably the intention. But
Right.
just having that carpeted
Yeah,
walls
yeah.
and just her asleep and then that music. It was great. It was great. And then and so he's showing us the media and how it's trying to deal with this event, and you can kind of see everything's just collapsing.
Hmm.
But I totally agree. Yeah.
It's great. It's great. The script is great. It's a really good script too. It's like just the way it's, they're talking about the putting the rescue stations on the screen and how they're out of
Mhm.
date, and the one guy, the head of the studio, is like, keep them on. That he doesn't care if it send people to out of
Mhm.
date rescue stations, and she's calling him out, telling him to take them down, and it's all like over the studio, so the audience, the viewing audience who's watching that news program can hear it, and it's just so great. This total, just a feeling of chaos and everything falling apart, and then introducing Flyboy and how we're getting off, meet me up at the roof at 9 o'clock or whatever. It's great. It's great. And
Yeah.
then going into that tenement building, it's so creepy, that environment. I feel like, he said a lot, like, I don't know, it's weird because on one hand, I've heard Romero say, the first few minutes we wanted to really give the audience a gut punch so that you know that this is a real serious horror movie. And then on the other hand, he's also said things like, "Oh, it's a comic book, it's a romp," which is a funny old fashioned word. That it's like, it's more of a comic book fun thing, but I think there's a lot of, and there's that element. There's a lot of element of like adventure and action, but there's some really creepy stuff in it too, which is, if it was only action primarily, I wouldn't like it as much. It's like I like that sprinkling of creepiness. Like the whole tenement scene is creepy. It's got that one racist cop, which is another night. You could have not had any of that stuff in there, and that's like what makes the script special. That racist cop that kind of goes crazy and starts shooting everybody, and he blows that guy's head off. The head, it's like the most amazing head explosion. Especially at the time, I can't tell you how shocking it was to see a head explode. I don't think it had ever been done that I can think of. I think it was like the first shocking head explosion. I think Scanners was after that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Wasn't that like an 80 or?
Yeah, I think it was after. Yeah.
And so, and it just it makes you go like, that's what's so great is you're like 10 minutes in and you're like, oh shit, this is the beginning of the movie. The head exploding, the guy taking the bite out of the lady's shoulder and the arm, which is also really great and super painful looking. Do you remember where she's like screaming for her husband and she goes and hugs him and he bites a big chunk out of her neck?
So cool. So that scene is so wonderful because like you said, it starts out with one kind of texture, and that the threat's this cop that's going crazy, out, run amok. And it's like this racist cop, and here's his chance to go into a tenant building and just kill.
Yeah.
But then there's that shocking head explosion. But then it kind of shifts gears, and there's that weird surreal guy coming out, approaching his wife. She doesn't know what to think, and then he bites her. And it's like, what the hell? This is like, it becomes something different. It's no longer the rogue or the cop run amok. It just went into something very, very creepy and bizarre. And in the way he moved, the way she reacted to him, was like, what?
Yeah.
He's coming close, and he bites her, and that effect. So what Romero does here is just like kind of like what Death Race 2000. You don't feel safe,
Right.
Because it was not a rated R movie. He
Right.
did not edit anything.
Unrated.
So you're kind of in uncharted territory. First that head explosion, and then the realistic bites, and then just the dreamy, weird nightmarishness of that. And also, did you notice the pastel colors of all of them?
Yeah.
I love that.
I know,
the
me
color of
too.
the blood, and the
Yep.
gray makeups. I just loved it. It's very it's very surreal.
It is, yeah, yeah. It's really it's beautiful in a
Mhm.
way, in a weird way, you
They're
know.
moving slow, and you got the pastel colors,
Yeah,
and then the spots of violence, and no one's not quite sure
and
what
there's
to
like
do.
paint peeling off the
Yeah,
walls, and then
so
it's
good.
just it's amazing. And
It's
the
fantastic.
other thing that's great, you know, after he shoots Wooly, which is the racist cop,
Oh,
Ken Free shoots him. If anybody's listening to this has never seen the movie, you should probably just not listen to this and go watch the movie first. It's on YouTube, a bunch of different cuts of it. But he shoots Wooly, and then the guy's like, "Not that room," which is great. You know, not that room, not that room. And then they open it, and there's like a dead body on the floor, and like a hand and a pile of blood. And then they go in there, and then there's that guy with the missing foot that
hmm
starts crawling towards that young SWAT guy. And you know,
hmm
again, to me that's totally creepy. It's super creepy. You know,
Yeah.
he doesn't have a foot, and he's like crawling in a way that it just has like, even the bites, the shoulder bites and the arm bites. It's something, the way he shot that stuff. It's like he shot these effect sequences in a way that they were just like all the other action in the movie.
Matter of
Yeah,
factly.
instead of like, you know, like you'd see in a lot of those old Italian movies, like Zombie, especially, like they'll shoot someone in the head and it'll go like zoom in, and blood will be,
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
they're hanging extra time on this to see it. It's like, it's just matter of fact. It's cut in a way that's, it's not lingering on it too long. And it
yeah,
gives you a feeling that like it's really happening or something.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
I love that
yeah.
scene with that guy with
And that
no
scene
foot.
isn't that have pastel colors on the
Yeah,
wall?
yeah, with the peeling
So
paint, and
you
yeah.
kind of take for granted that you hadn't really seen anything
There's
like
like
this before.
toys on the floor
Toys
and
on the
stuff
floor.
too. And there's
Yeah,
like a body with blood and a hand, and like kids' toys, and it's all kind of dirty. It's so like got this gritty realism, which is, you know, another thing I love about that movie is it's in the same way that Dawn has, or Night of the Living Dead had, that kind of documentary, grainy, raw feel to it. It feels
hmm
documentary in a way in certain spots, and I think Dawn is like that too, especially in the tenement sequence. It's like it's just so real and kind of gritty and dirty, and it just feels like, you know, someone
It
had a,
almost feels like a newsreel.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely, yep.
yeah.
And it's like, you know, he worked in newsrooms too. That was his, he that's how he learned how to edit, is working.
That's
Romero is working in
right.
these
That's yeah. So
newsrooms.
he brought that to it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. So it's really, really interesting. Um, yeah, but that whole sequence up to the point where Ken Free, what's his name, Peter and
Peter.
Roger, they they're in that room with the clothes hanging, and they're kind of taking a break, and then that old priest comes in, the one-legged priest. It's like, again, that is so
Uh-huh.
freaky and cool.
Was this after the group of all the dead the undead eating
No,
and
no, that's right before, because he walks in and they
oh
think he's a
yeah.
zombie, and he's like, "Let me pass, let me pass." And there's like the smoke from the gas, you know, because they mask for gas, that whole thing where they were putting, you know,
Yeah.
shooting gas canisters in there, tear gas, and and he comes in, and it's like all smoky, and he's like skinny, and he has
Uh-huh.
one leg, and he's got a crutch, and
Yeah.
he's got that accent, and he's like spits out a few like zingers in there, like you know.
He was kind of like dignified.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's like,
yeah,
what the? Yeah, yeah. He seemed kind of dignified and comes in and just offers some advice
yeah,
and then just
yeah.
walks
And he's like,
out.
he's like, says like, you are more powerful than us, but soon I think they be more powerful than you. And then
Oh,
and then the line is, he's walking out, "We must stop the killing or we lose the war." It's like, what a great line.
mm,
That's just a great line. And then
mm,
it takes you to the basement. He tells them, more great script writing as well. It's not like this random character that just walked through to be creepy and weird. It's like it's moved the story forward. He's like,
yeah,
you'll find the dead bodies they've been keeping in the basement,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah.
And so then you go into that basement scene, which is also creepy as hell. when they go down there and there's all those zombies eating body parts, and some of them are wrapped in sheets, with cord and sheets, and some of them just have their heads sticking out and their bodies are like wrapped up in sheets, like they're just trying to keep these people, they don't want to shoot them in the head, but they are keeping them locked away. Super creepy, super creepy. And it's all like cedar blocks, block concrete, runny old walls in a tenement basement. So cool.
I have a hard time watching it. You know why? Because I'm so food squeamish.
Oh, really?
I can't watch any of the scenes where the actors are eating like.
Oh, really?
I'd rather see him biting into silicone or gelatin or something. But
yeah, it is pretty.
I get the sense that it's real meat. It makes me sick.
Yeah,
I have to turn away.
Yeah, it is pretty gross.
That scene is great. I kind of like the makeup that Tom Savini applied to one of them, and I don't know what he was doing. He didn't have a lot of time, but it was kind of a neat look. But it looked like someone smashed a pink pancake on the guy's head.
Is that the one where it's kind of like hanging up? Yeah, I love that because it looks like
I do too. Because
raw.
It's so wrong and it's so unthought out. It's just like, oh, that's great.
It's like to me, I always thought of it as like raw flesh, just because it's like hanging off all down, and it's just all like smooth up here, kind of bloody. It's
I love it. I love it.
It's great. I remember hearing too that, I don't know if this is true, but I thought I heard Tom Savini say the effects budget for that makeup effects was $10,000, which I kind of believe, because none of them made any money really. I think the director and producer both made it combined $50,000 for doing the project. Like that was their 25 each or something. Just, nothing for that movie.
Well, Tom Savini, because, I don't know. Did you ever, this wasn't really special makeup effects territory, more special effects, but had you ever set up a squib effect?
No.
When you watch that, it's quite the little process. They have to protect the skin, so it's usually glued onto a plate, a metal plate or something, a condom filled with blood. They'll tape over it, and they'll attach the little, let's see, I guess the little explosion device between the metal plate and the blood. Then they'll have to sever the clothing so the blood has somewhere to escape. But, I mean, if you don't do that right, and that little squib explodes in the wrong place, you could harm an actor.
Yeah.
And there are so many bullet hits in that
so
movie.
so many squibs.
And hits like in the forehead and stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think he used squibs for those. I think he did the Dick Smith effect where they just a monofilament line just pulled a
button
away from the to achieve the hole, the bullet hole effect, which is, I hope so, because that's a safe way to do it.
Yeah,
but he had so much that he had to accomplish.
Yeah,
right? Amazing.
Yeah. And the squibs were amazing. Like the squib. That's the other thing that was cool. It's like anytime a zombie or someone got shot, it was like lots of chunky blood came out.
It seemed real.
It was gross. It was just like there wasn't any shots where someone just got a shot and it was a little hole or something. It was like boom. Every shot was like that. I love that over the top violence too in that movie. It just suits it so well. But that's another thing I remember thinking when I saw it for the first time is like the squibs are just amazing. There's always a ton of blood. And then I think that, remember in the beginning when before they rush into the tenement building, he's talking to that kid, the new kid. And he says, I'll be okay. And then he gets shot in the head. And that is like, I'm 99% sure that it was derma wax or mortician's wax covering a button with monofilament, because it looks great, but it's like total mortician's wax. It's like these flares out, kind of after the button gets pulled out.
I think you're right, because I went on IMDb to look at the cast, and they did have that actor, and It was after he got shot.
It looks totally
You can
like
see the build
It
up.
looks
Yeah.
exactly like a button was pulled out of wax. I mean, I think like they even use like buttons, like shirt buttons.
Hmm.
You know, like at least that's a way I've been
Yeah, why
told you can
not?
do that. It's got the little holes. And you tie the monofilament. You just have to build it thick enough. But on some of the other ones, you could tell that they were maybe prosthetic foam,
Okay.
prosthetic foreheads, and they're pulling out like maybe a bigger
Chunk and
flap.
stuff.
You know,
Yeah.
like when in the mall when Peter gets his big hunting gun, they make a point of showing the first shot he does on someone, and it has a really loud boom. You're giving the impression this is a badass gun, and a piece like this big goes flying up this guy's
Yeah.
forehead. Phew, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so that, and I just watched it before I've seen this movie. I don't even know how many times, like, 100 times maybe. But
Wow.
I've seen it so much because
It really left an impact on you.
oh yeah,
didn't
I used to go see it when I got older. It came out old enough to drive, so 15, 16. They used to have a midnight showing every weekend, and so I'd always go to the midnight show. Me and my friend would go to the midnight screening because that was
Yeah.
before it was, I think, on VHS even. Maybe it might have been on VHS, but that probably around the time people didn't have, you had to rent video players.
That's how, I mean, that's how I saw it.
Yeah.
I think my friend Matt and I think, watched it. And he was, yeah, it's so interesting because I was exhilarated by the violence too. But I think, because we're monster kids, of course, and we've
Yeah.
talked about this, that, it was all kind of a precursor to what was about to happen with the Howling and
Mhm.
Altered States. But still, Tom Savini is a really innovative
I know
guy.
he really is. He was innovating this stuff. He
And
was
when,
he kind of I think he doesn't get enough credit in the makeup effects proper in the professional makeup effects world. He gets the props from the fans.
yeah,
He's always been popular with the fans, but I think he doesn't get enough credit in the professional world because he was doing low budget and it was focusing on gore. And people in the effects world are kind of like, snobby about gore. I think that it's not, it's not.
I totally agree. And if you were making a film, wouldn't you want to have someone like Tom Savini on set?
Oh yeah.
I would want someone like Tom who's there, he's dedicated, he's talented, he's resourceful.
Mhm.
And and I agree. I think he's been underrated as far as what he's much more than just splatter.
Yeah.
One of my favorite like undead makeups is in the Father's Day episode in Creepshow. Remember that makeup?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And he, where's my Father's Day cake?
Yeah.
And that makeup is I love
Oh
it. It
yeah.
has so much character to it.
Absolutely.
And all the stuff in Creepshow was a good kind of vehicle. That was a good vehicle for him to show what he's capable of.
Yeah. And he's a super. You know what I noticed? I watched a tour of his house recently that someone did, and he's
I have
such.
too.
Oh yeah, he's such a total fan. You could tell he's like a super fan of effects. Like he's into it. It's real. He's not just like. He's a fan of film and stuff. He's like one of us in that way. Super geeky, totally into it, which is cool. He's not just. I don't know. He seems like for real. Like he's really into it.
He does, and and it was infectious. Like I said, when I remember getting. Do you remember that documentary? That first documentary on Tom Savini, and it was produced by Fangoria. That came out. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
It was really good, and I
Really?
remember renting it when I was about 14 or so, and I watched. We had it for about 3 days. I would watch it, maybe every day after school, and I look forward to it. And then shortly thereafter, or maybe before, I got Bizarro.
Oh yeah,
That book.
Yeah,
Grand Illusions or whatever.
Yeah.
It was reissued, I guess, as Bizarro. But
yeah,
like we've talked about this, but that was such a wonderful gift to kids like you and I.
yeah. Amazing. Yeah,
who were desperate, hungry for any bits of information we could find about
yeah,
makeup effects.
yeah.
So
It was a game changer for me too.
yeah. So, but Tom Savini, yeah. So Chad, I'm kind of interested. This fascinates me. Is what do you think was the allure for you about the undead? What strikes you? Because I can tell
Yeah, it's you
what
know,
is it?
I don't know, but it's Frankenstein's monster was always that's one of my big.
An undead. You're right.
Yeah,
That's
and that's
part of that.
kind of a
Mhm.
zombie, and I don't
You're
know. I feel like maybe it has to do with the fear of death, maybe
ah
and
yeah.
I like what makes scares because I've had like nightmares about zombies, it's a lot of dreams and stuff, because it really scares me. The idea scares me, and I think
Yeah.
it's because of these movies too. There's this sense of hopelessness in these films, where it's like, you know, you can't reason with them. They're just like
Yeah.
dumb, and slow. And I'm a slow zombie type of guy for
I am
sure.
too. Yeah.
I feel like, and I feel like it's creepy. It's creepy. It's not this kind of terrorizing type of fear.
Hmm.
It's more about getting the creeps and like this thing slowly shuffling towards you. That to me, that's like creepy. This thing that's dead walking towards you just wants to eat you for no reason. No, that's like a
It's
terrifying
it's kind of
thought.
yeah, it is. It's kind of incomprehensible, and it is. And um,
It might be a primal thing too about like getting eaten by animals. Some
eaten
kind
by
of
animals, and it's kind of a mockery of death,
yeah.
And so it makes sense. I was just like I said, I was just slow to it,
Hmm.
but because I was more infatuated by mutant bears
Yeah, yeah, fantasy stuff.
prophecy,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm a big fan of Day of the Dead actually too.
I watched that again recently. That's a really good,
Yeah.
great movie.
But Dawn of the Dead, it was just that perfect timing. And
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a lot more fun than day or night too. I think it's more
Hmm.
fun. It's like there's this whole element of being in a mall, just that on end of the world, and you have a mall to yourself is like such a fun idea. Everybody's
It is. It's a
fantasized about.
fantasy, isn't
Yeah,
it? Wouldn't that be great? Oh,
yeah,
because I often fantasize about I've thought about throughout my life being a janitor at night, just
uh
so I had
huh,
a whole empty building to myself, because I love the idea of that.
yeah, yeah,
And sometimes at Rick's building, when it was being constructed, we would go over there sometimes, and it was just this big, vast warehouse. And I loved that.
yeah.
I loved the feeling of that. But the mall, I guess, I'm wondering if people fully appreciate how exciting and interesting a mall was when we were growing up.
That's the thing is
No,
there weren't any malls.
no, it was something totally new,
Yep.
and it was a hangout place. It was exciting. That's where people congregated. Arcades were starting to happen, and it was just this great combination of things that was the place you wanted to be.
Right. It was like what would be a downtown, people in the old days hanging out in the downtown of their town where all the businesses are. It's like that became the mall. It's like
Yep.
the central place where everyone would meet and go to.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's funny too because when the after that tenement building scene, and then they meet at the docks to fuel up the helicopter, and they meet if they all the four people meet. Well, Peter meets the what's his name and what Flyboy and
Stephen, yeah, Flyboy, Roger and Peter, they meet up with Stephen and Francine.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And then they're flying. And there's even some great stuff, while they're flying over and seeing how bad it is and seeing like the rednecks, having target practice, which is funny. It's totally hilarious. Played for laughs. They have that kind of silly song, "I'm a Man" song, while they're all like partying, and that was pretty.
I wonder what rural people thought of that scene.
I know they all went. From what I read, they all went out and volunteered their time to do it too. It's so yeah, I wonder because it was pretty like, these rednecks must be enjoying it, very, very kind of talking down to them a little bit, but
And it was a kind of a creepy time of year that they were filming. It was definitely like a
yeah,
winter.
hmm
So everything was kind of, the colors were very dull.
yeah. That's another thing.
Cold and wet and unpleasant.
That's another thing I really like about it is that feeling that color palette of like fall or winter where it's like gray and there's like a gray cast over everything, almost like a foggy feeling.
Yeah.
That's where one way that I think that the 1990 remake of Night of the Living Dead, the Tom Savini one,
Hmm.
which actually I didn't like it at first, and I like it now. I've seen it a few times, and it's got some of the coolest zombies ever.
I agree.
It's good. It's good. I really liked it. But they start out and it's sunny, and they don't have that atmosphere in that movie. I don't know if you remember. It's very like
I do.
too bright and sunny, and it's like
They filmed it. It looked like maybe in the spring.
yeah,
Early summer,
and
springtime.
It just didn't have that creepy vibe. But
that's so important when you, like, as a filmmaker, I would think to be, I mean, I know they don't have the luxury. They have to film it when they have to film it, but to choose the time of year.
yeah.
It's like if you watch the movie The Fugitive with Harrison Ford, I always remember it because it takes place around the same time as Dawn of the Dead. Everything's kind of bleached, so it's winter time.
Right.
So it was either like it could either be November or February, but it had a definite mood, and it felt cold and dank, and and so Dawn of the Dead definitely was taking place in film during a certain period of the year, and I thought it suited it wonderfully.
Yeah, and even symbolically it does, because it's the winter and death, and kind of perfect in that way. But it can't. We got to talk about the airplane hangar scene too, because that's another great scene where they land in the airplane hangar to get some more fuel, and then the zombie that gets the top of his head cut off.
Yeah,
which is totally great. Such the sound. I think the sound sells it. I don't know if you noticed, but the sound of the head getting chopped off from the helicopter blades is like this ripping. It's really great. But the funny, I remember seeing that. So basically, for people who haven't seen it, they're refueling the helicopter, and a zombie is about to get the guy who's refueling, Roger,
and he can't hear the zombie creeping up to him because of the helicopter.
Yeah, because the helicopter blades are spinning, and so a zombie stands up to get him, and then the helicopter blades just cut the top of his head off in a hilarious way too, because it's like his reaction is kind of hilarious, where he's just sitting, he doesn't even move, and he's just like giving this look like, wow. But that is, again, there was so much blood came out. It was so good. I just wish that it wasn't so square before.
I know.
It's like, I feel like it didn't have to be. It could have been round and it could have worked still, but it's very much like a Frankenstein square head. And I remember as, 11 years old seeing that in the theater and being like, why does he look like Frankenstein? He has kind of like a square head. Apparently they said that it was one of those things where the hair kind of poofed up, and
I remember, and I think it was in that documentary, Tom Savini talking about how they found an actor who luckily had a short forehead.
Right.
Well, I looked online to see what that. Oh no, it was in that documentary. They talked to him.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And he actually had a fairly normal forehead. And I was like, oh, I don't know if it was a short forehead or not. He may be, but I agree. I wonder if it needed to be square, so there's more of a bowl to have the viscera in.
Maybe.
So because when they pulled that line on top of the head, there was a good amount of blood and stuff that came out of that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, but it was tubing. I don't know, but I agree. It's like, why didn't he just round it off just a little bit?
But again, he's like doing this all by himself. Tom Savini, $10,000 budget. You could see where it's like he was probably just to do all those effects I'm pretty sure he was, maybe he had an assistant or something, but the lab work he was doing all himself, running foam latex, making molds.
It's a Tasso Stravakis
Yeah, yeah.
is his friend who might have been his assistant. But you know what? I don't want to. This is what I don't think we're really criticizing this because actually I love the fact that it was kind of square.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it's like it's flawed, but it's like it represents the spirit of everything.
Yeah, it is fun
And so
still.
I actually kind of I love it.
Yeah, it's at this point, it's like that's cool that he's like that. It's like
Uh-huh.
part of the
It's a great moment.
film.
It works well.
Oh
And like
yeah,
you said, the sound effects and the way it left the top of his head left him quick.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
what a great solution to that problem. And Romero or Savini said that they optically inserted the blades. I
yeah.
didn't see it. And also you talked about how I didn't see the tubing either, but did you say there was a
Oh,
part?
there's a when it shows his head getting cut off, and then he slumps down, and then it cuts to the reverse, and you could see him from
Uh-huh.
behind, and you could see some tubing going
Oh,
up his back. It's
back.
just
Okay.
it's for a split second, like
But there you go. I didn't notice it.
yeah.
So it worked.
Same with
Yeah.
there's a shot where I don't know if you remember where they're driving the trucks, and a zombie gets hit on the windshield of the truck. It's when Roger's kind of going crazy, and it makes a
Hmm.
blood splatter, and he does the
Yep.
windshield wipers. If you freeze frame, this is how much of a geek I am about this movie. If you freeze frame it, it's Tom Savini playing the guy that gets hit by the truck. If you freeze frame it, you can see a little blue. I think it's a blue trampoline that he like jumps off of,
Oh,
and it's
wow.
like for just
Oh,
2 frames or something, you could see it. But in the context,
interesting.
you don't see it at all. And that's
No, I
I
didn't
think
see it.
I think that's why another reason George Romero was such a great editor because he edited the movie, and I think that a lot of the greatness of this movie is in the editing, and he knows that
Hmm.
being a low budget filmmaker, he knows it doesn't matter if there's 1 or 2 frames or you can see that thing because no one's going to see it. 99.9% of the people are going to see it, or same with the tubing thing. I'm sure he saw it, but it was like no one's going to notice it.
But he is a great editor, and that documentary, like we were saying earlier, reminded me because just the way he edited those scenes of Night of the Living Dead, that
Hmm.
graveyard scene, was really good. And
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting. In that documentary we watched, I don't know what to tell people to see. I forgot the title of it, but there's a
It's
great two
document
documentaries,
document of the dead. It's called.
Document of the Dead, and they mentioned somehow that part of his Romero's style is he had a lot of cuts.
Right.
So he filmed a lot of stuff,
Yep.
and that shows that he was confident as an editor to be able to manage all that
Yeah,
material.
I that makes so much sense to me the way he was describing it, where it's like you get a lot of coverage, and you know that
Hmm.
you have enough coverage to where you can cut it together to give it like a
Hmm.
rhythm. That makes total sense to me. If you have it
Does.
like instead of having every single shot storyboarded and then you just shoot that, it makes a lot more sense, especially in that kind of environment where they're in a mall. They don't have time for all these complicated lighting setups and this and that. But I wanted to mention the other thing about the hangar is that bald zombie.
Oh
Probably my
yeah.
favorite. I think that's my favorite zombie in the movie. Maybe the bald zombie with the flannel. He's got
Yep.
half his chest and half his face, and that for some reason that again,
Iconic.
yeah, the way that he's just slowly creeps up on him and he turns around and sees him and it's all gray outside. It's
Yeah.
just got that like misty feeling outside that was really misty when they shot it and probably early in the morning. Super creepy. Um, and that's the head from the cover or the
The
movie
one
poster.
sheet, the
Yeah,
poster.
yeah.
And in that article for Newsweek that came out in '79, Summer of Fear, that was the photograph they used
Oh,
of that
cool.
bald zombie. And so that was my introduction to the imagery of Dawn of the
Oh,
Dead, was
wow.
that zombie demon. And yeah, it's I love that it has a flannel shirt.
Yeah,
It's bald. It's iconic.
yeah. It's like
The
a
choices that went into that.
yeah, yeah. It's like a country kind of guy out in the country, jeans and a flannel, but it's just striking. I
Mhm.
feel like one of the things about this film, or about like any great film, is that there has to be this element of I hate to use the word magic, but there has to be this element of magic. There has to be like everything has to be kind of working in a cosmic, energetically positive way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he didn't, I'm sure he didn't write in the script, this bald zombie with the flannel, and jeans. Like that character's so great. I'm sure it was like the costumer just, oh, this would be cool. Tom Savini had this prosthetic. Maybe they were generic prosthetics. A lot of the stuff was out of the kit too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, they happened to choose this bald guy because he was available, but it's like energetically, everything is working together to give you these iconic moments. And I think that's kind of like the magic of, filmmaking when it's great. It's like those happy accidents happen and make these iconic moments. And I feel like there was a lot in that movie.
Exactly. And considering the budget and yeah, no, it gets back to, I think magic is the right word. It gets back to the art gods, the film gods, and the purity of intention. And that if you go in, how you mentally approach the creation of a piece of art will definitely determine the outcome. And George Romero, all these, the energy was right, and they were all helping one each other out. There wasn't a lot of money.
They're all into it.
They're into it, and that, of course, creativity spawns from that. And so, yeah,
it feels inspired.
I agree.
The movie feels inspired to me.
And the mall, they said just kind of opened up to them because they knew someone who owned the mall.
Yeah.
That's another one of it, because that's a major component of this movie. That mall that's what sets it apart.
Yep.
Because we were all into malls at the time. We all fantasized about how cool it would be to have a mall to ourselves. And then that contrast of no, the people walking around aren't alive, they're dead.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of orient yourself to that. It's fantastic. So that mall was a blessing.
Yeah. And they were saying, I don't know if it was in that documentary or I've seen another documentary too that was like a bonus feature on a DVD where they're saying there's no way they could make that movie again today. No mall would open themselves up, a live mall to where they're shooting at night and having motorcycles go in there and shit.
Oh, and those motorcycles left skid marks on the floor. And all the blood shots and everything. It's like every time when I watched it this time, I thought of the mess they were making and how much they had to clean up. The mall opening up. But it didn't deter them.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. It's amazing that they had that, the opportunity that just, getting I can't imagine a mall being okay with that, but it was like, he knew the guy who owned the mall, and so they're like, oh yeah, you could film here. It's like, that would never happen today. No one would open their doors to, it would probably have to be like I don't know how they did the remake, cause that was shot in a mall, but I think it maybe was like an abandoned mall or something. I thought I read something like that, or it might've been sets and stuff too.
Yeah. But that vast space to shoot the movie in, I just love. And even in some of the behind the scenes where the guy was interviewing Romero, it was kind of creepy because it wasn't fully lit. So we're used to seeing a mall when it's open and it's fully lit, but when it's not, what a perfect atmosphere of kind of something not being right, and the dark spots in the hallway, and there is a kind of an unsettling feeling to it. So I love the mall.
Oh, it's so great. Yeah, so
good.
They're flying over, they find the mall, they're like, what is that's another funny line. What is it? It's one of those big indoor shopping malls, because it was such a new thing. It's funny to hear that now. But they land and they're looking in, looking down in the mall from the skylights because they land on the roof, and then they find the civil defense supplies, and there's that great scene where he's like, how are we going to get in there? And then Peter just hits with his gun and breaks the window, and Steven's like, kind of annoyed, but it's great. Room, with only one entrance. And so it's like once it gets to the part of the mall, it very much becomes like an adventure or action movie, I think.
Mm.
Because like they get to that, they get the idea, they're chilling in the mall and they get the idea. It's like we go get some stuff down there, and again, that's when it starts kind of making the commentary of the consumerism
Hmm.
commentary, really, about how they're fantasizing about all the shit they can get, and and they go down there and kind of scope it out, and they're doing all their like figuring out how they're going to do it, and then they find the keys, and or yeah, they find the keys, they turn on. That's the other thing, amazing. They're like turn the music and the fountains and everything on because they find the control
Hmm.
panel, and that music is like excellent. It's so funny,
Hmm.
that the mall music, it's so corny, and it's I just thought I
They
just
played it
thought
in the credits too, didn't they?
yeah, that
Hmm.
main one, the gonk, I think it's called.
Oh. Yeah,
It's like perfect.
it is.
And a lot of the other music too, although, it's just such a great juxtaposition of these, them running around shooting all these zombies and dead people wandering around with this cheesy ass mall music from the 70s. It's so funny. But that's the other thing I should mention. The Goblin, it's like the music is canned music that Romero used, like library music that was just stock, that like royalty free music you could use, or
Okay.
filmmakers used for commercials. It was kind of like you buy a license and you can just use whatever in this library,
Okay.
which
Uh-huh.
is some of the more old fashioned sounding
Oh,
music.
so okay, so what was the Goblin? Was it just that main theme?
No, well, no, the Goblin stuff. It's like it's kind of a mix. I think it's probably mostly the Goblin music, but anything that sounds like, Goblin was like they're like a prog rock band. So it's
Synthesizer too.
yeah, but they're very prog. So it's like if you know much about music, it's like they do a lot of weird timing signatures, and
Oh,
it's
okay.
complicated kind of music. It's not super basic. Um, but anything like that, I know that they're that dun
Which I
dun.
love.
Yeah,
That's so
it's
good.
so great, and yeah, the
Yeah, so that's definitely Goblin.
yeah.
So like the scene, like for instance, when Ken Free's characters decides that he's not going to stay behind in the mall.
Oh yeah,
It's almost like so that wasn't Goblin. That
that's
was just
library. Yeah, that was
stock library music.
the
Yeah,
cheesy that one's that's it's
I didn't
like
know what to think of that,
yeah,
but
that's the thing. It's so funny because that was the even when I saw it as a kid, I was like, that is so corny. Why did they do that? It's do 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 do. It's like heroic
Mhm.
action, but like cheesy '60s kind of heroic. And
I still don't know what to think of it. But
yeah,
anyway,
we're
yeah.
getting out of sequence here, but
But you know what I kind of I sometimes one of my things that I fantasize to calm me. It's always the same image. It's me being in a storm, a snowstorm, but I'm in a on like a cliffside with a little cave, and I've got a little fire going. And in the little opening of the cave, it's all blue because it's like the thing, all the snow, and
mhm.
it's unsafe. But I'm in a little cave, and it's warm, and there's a fire going, and I've got shelter. I'm protected. And so when they're out in that scary element, the world's collapsing, and then they find that mall, and then they go, it breaks the window, and they find this little space. That I kind of get a similar feeling. It's like this. It's
Yeah,
like a little. It's very, very comforting. Of course, it is a shelter. They found
right.
something, but that's very appealing to me. I like to think about
Same
that, and it's like
here.
a little safe spot where
Yeah.
they can eat, they can talk, and it must tap into something primal in us because
Hmm.
that's very important when the world's falling apart or you're being chased by a predator. What could be better than a little safe space,
Yeah.
to kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
escape the storm?
I
And
used
that's the
to,
way I felt about the mall, and especially that
yeah.
upper part.
Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that because it got me thinking about, I used to go up in my attic like that. I used to go up in the attic of my
Oh,
house when I was a little kid, just like get away from
oh,
everybody. And it's that same kind of feeling like, no one's up here. no one's gonna bother going up in the attic.
You're safe.
Yeah,
You
safe. You're kind of like protected and in this little womb, kind of.
yeah, yeah, well, yeah, yeah. So I love that. I always think about my mind goes to that whenever I watch Dawn of the Dead or think about Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah,
Goes to that little safe space. And so it's particularly upsetting at the end that it gets violated.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when it doesn't, it's like it's very, very soothing and comforting
yeah.
to me.
Absolutely. So when they go down to the mall the first time, which is that
Hmm.
got that great line, he's like, they kind of are figuring it out. Should we? I forget what he said. Bag it or do it or something, and then Roger's like, I need lighter fluid. He's like, all right, let's do it. I
Okay.
thought that was another great line. It's like, I need lighter fluid, so we're gonna go and risk our lives. But uh, all that stuff was Goblin music, I think. Dun dun, or maybe that.
Dun, dun, dun,
It's
dun,
there's that
dun, 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 dun,
dun
dun,
it
dun, dun.
dun dun it
How good-
dun it dun
Oh
dun
yeah,
dun
yeah.
dun it.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, that's got to be Goblin.
So you can tell it's like the Goblin stuff is 70s sounding prog music, and then the canned
Uh,
music is more like kind of orchestral and like
okay.
weird, like when they're in the gun store. It's got that kind of like African drum
Hmm. Hmm.
music and stuff like that. But I found actually I have the vinyl. I bought the vinyl. I've never played it because I don't have a record player, but I bought the vinyl music.
Oh,
But they got it on YouTube. All the Goblin songs. It's really cool. It's really great.
yeah,
It's good
yeah.
music. It's really well
I
done.
think I've listened to it on Spotify too before. Um,
It's great.
let's talk about Flyboy for a minute.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so Flyboy is the actor David
MG,
MG
MG.
M MG,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I was watching it most recently last week in preparation for this, I found myself kind of getting irritated by Flyboy,
Yeah, he was irritating.
and I misunderstood it because it's like I at first I thought, oh man, is this George Romero's, is this bad directing or is it bad acting? And it might be less than subtle acting, but in
Which
that
part?
documentary, well, just initially, like when he's going down, initially he seemed kind of erratic when I felt like, but I didn't like him. He
Yeah,
annoyed me.
yeah. He's not a
And
likable
then,
character.
and then I realized, well, he was written that way. There was a little bit of an arc there,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
it's like I wasn't appreciating fully how these characters were written,
Hmm. Yeah,
and so he wasn't really meant to be liked, and he was kind of, yeah, he was almost trying. He felt insecure against these the policemen or this law
yeah.
enforcement,
He was
these
like
two
the
other guys
the
who were
annoying.
trained.
Yeah, yeah. He's like the annoying little brother that wants to do what
Yeah,
the big kids are doing, and he
yes.
keeps fucking up.
But then he brings something to the table that's critical. He can
Right.
fly the um
The helicopter.
the
Yeah.
helicopter. But I want to talk about real quick what I really appreciate about Dawn of the Dead are the faces of the principal lead characters. The actors, every one of them has a really interesting face.
Mm-hmm.
Galen Ross, who plays Francine, she's got beautiful big eyes, and I'm fascinated by her mouth.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a mouth that when she smiles, it changes, and she's in Creep Show too. But she
Right.
has one of those smiles where you can see both the upper and lower teeth.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but when she closes her mouth, it's got a very unconventional shape. She's very, very attractive in an unconventional way.
Mm-hmm.
And then David Emge, he kind of has similar eyes as her.
Right. Yeah.
When I was watching, I was going, I wonder if you put a blonde wig on him, if he if he would look like Galen Ross. But the bone structure is different. But they have distinctive faces. And then you get to Ken Faree, who's got a great face,
Yeah. Yeah.
and he's so good in this. And what a great leading man he is in this
Yeah.
picture.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of like the person that you can just like a total leader, where
Right.
whenever he's in a scene, you can kind of relax because he's going to do the right thing. He's not going to
Right.
be too obnoxious or
Right.
irritating, dumb. Because even what's his name, Scott Reiniger, who plays Roger, he kind of loses it a little bit,
Yeah.
just prior to being bitten.
Yeah. Yeah. He
But
gets.
his face is interesting too, the way
Yeah.
it captures light, the
Yep.
angularity of his bone structure. So I found myself just loving all these faces. I mean, good
Yeah.
casting,
Absolutely.
interesting casting choices. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. And I love that it's all no name actors
yeah,
too. I think
some of
that's
them like
great.
Scott Reiniger and David M. Actually, Ken Faree, I think, was the only real actor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's amazing. They all did such a great
Right.
job.
Yeah, yeah. He's the only one that kind of went on to do other stuff, I think, too. I don't think they were really in other than Creep Show. She was in Creep Show, and then I don't think
Yeah.
Roger really did any much else.
I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And I forgave David Emge Flyboy, and I forgave him because I started to like him of course, because he had a character arc.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so,
He
yeah,
becomes more likable. It's
but
definitely written that way though, because at the he
yes,
almost shoots Ken Free in the at the hangar, the airplane hangar.
yep,
He's
with
written.
the bald, yeah,
And he's
yeah,
great. He's jittery, and he's just like you could tell he's like nervous and jittery. You can kind of tell, and just unconfident.
Well, and that whole scene in the that looked like the boiler room of the mall where they had the office, it was darkly lit,
Hmm.
and
Oh man, that
that
one.
was an unsettling scene because you could tell he did not have confidence that he was going to handle the scene well,
Right.
and he barely came out of it alive. Wait, how did he survive that?
Oh,
Did
that's
he
such
end
a
up
great.
shooting that zombie, or
Yeah,
did someone else come in?
that's an amazing scene. So that's after the two guys. It's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. It's so smart. Um, the two SWAT guys go down, and Steven's sleeping, and they leave a gun for him and Fran, and but Steven's sleeping. Steven wakes up because he hears them shooting, and he takes
Yeah,
her gun, and he's like, which is like so another stupid, obnoxious thing
stupid
he
thing. I
does,
was
where he's like,
irritated. Yeah, it's
he's
like,
going to go
don't do
down. Those
that.
guys, I can't leave those guys by themselves, and he runs down there, and then he
Yeah.
goes to the inner workings of the mall, the behind the scenes, and it's like all kinds of machinery and stuff, pipes and everything, really cool looking actually setting, and he finds that's where he finds the map of the air duct for them
That's right.
to travel to different stores without being seen. But he finds a gun when he finds this map in an office. He finds a gun, then he finds a box of bullets, and he grabs the gun and bullets, grabs the map, and then he realizes he sees a zombie in there with him, and he's like real slow, holds it, and then click, like there's no bullets in the gun, and then he starts running because he lets the zombie get real close so he can shoot him in the head, and then there's no bullets in there, so he runs away from him. Oh no! I'm sorry, that's not what happens. He starts shooting randomly,
Theoretically.
and
Yeah.
that's
And it's ricocheting.
yeah, it's
Keeps
like,
doing it. It's like, what is he doing?
yeah, because there's all these
Yeah.
big pipes and stuff,
Yeah.
and the way he shot that too, it's like these camera swishes. It's
Yeah.
it's really, if you watch it again for the editing, it's really well edited because
It
it's like
is.
bullets flying all around and they're not hitting the zombie. And
Because you're irritated, you're unsettled. It's like because he's not approaching the situations
yeah,
wisely.
he's being an
And it's
idiot.
like, what, you idiot? You keep thinking the ricocheting bullet's going to hit him in the head.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
But, yeah.
So then the zombie comes up to him, and then he finally is like, okay, he gets
Oh,
lets
and he's
him
out of bullets.
Yeah, he gets him close,
Yes.
and he pulls the trigger, and he goes, oh shit! It's just
Yeah.
really a great sequence. Then he goes and runs from the zombie and stops and starts loading the bullets. He pulls the bullets out to load the gun, and he gets one bullet in,
One in.
and then the
That's
zombie
right.
comes and gets him and kind of throws him down in a corner, totally backed into a corner, and then he has that one bullet in the gun, and he's just going click, click,
Click.
click, click as he gets closer. And just the last minute shoots him. It's like that's such a great a great scene. It's really
That's a
kind of
great
brilliant,
scene. You're right.
you
That
know?
is a great scene, and it worked on me because I was uncomfortable the
Mm-hmm.
entire time. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
you're right. It was a great scene.
But it's so clever. Just the idea where he just gets the one bullet in and it's just really,
Yeah.
the pacing is great. Um, yeah. So basically, then they do that. They figure out eventually that they get some supplies and stuff, go back up, and then they figure out they can hotwire these trucks that they see down the road at a truck yard and cover the
Mhm.
entrances, lock the doors, which is kind of a cool idea. Pretty smart, also, really, to think
Mhm.
about that. Like I wouldn't. Just the thought of doing that is pretty cool. Um, and that's when they fly them over to hotwire the trucks and they pull them down or drive them down and just cover the entrances of the mall. And that's when Roger starts going crazy, which is another
Yeah.
great uh, sequence for him where he's kind of starting to lose his mind and
Yeah.
hooping and hollering and
Okay, so what is he doing? What's happening to his character there? Is he getting too cocky? Is he just kind of over adrenalized? Because it was one of those things where it's like, all right, this is like Flyboy. He's not handling this properly, and
right.
that's why Ken Foree's character is always like this
Yeah, he's got to be the responsible one, kind
yeah,
of.
responsible character. And so it's like Roger was losing it, I guess.
Yeah,
I guess
I think he was
was
going
getting overly
crazy.
confident or
Yeah,
losing it. Yeah.
yeah, he seemed like to me like he was going crazy because he just that's how he was acting it anyway because he just kind of
Yeah.
look in his eye. That's I think he's a really good actor too. I think he changed so much when he went crazy.
And I
And
don't think he'd acted before.
yeah,
It was just someone, yeah.
he was an actor. I think,
Was
but
he?
yeah, I think he was like him and David Emge were working at a restaurant. They were like out of work actors, so
Oh,
they're
you're
like
right.
theater actors or something.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, but I thought he was great. And then
I did too.
so he gets sloppy and gets bitten, which is a bummer because he's such a great character. As the other thing that's I like about those two guys is the one Ken Foree is really tall and then he's really short,
Hmm.
and Romero was saying they were saying that he at first didn't want to cast them because the height discrepancy was so much, but that really adds to the character of these guys.
Hmm.
I think that's an interesting combination that makes them
Well, and
unique.
it does in that also, if he's really short, he might have been trying to overcompensate.
That's
I
true.
can do
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
I can
yeah,
handle this, a little too cocky.
yeah,
But you did not want to see those two get hurt. And so when he gets bit, it's upsetting.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now that I think about it, he was getting cocky, and then he's hot wiring that car. It's almost like he hasn't gotten crazy yet, and then that woman comes in, Tom Savini's
Yeah.
assistant with the blonde
Yeah.
hair.
Uh-huh.
She
Uh-huh.
comes in and he almost gets killed by her, and then Peter shoots her from the back of the head, and her face goes flying off, and all that blood goes on him and in his mouth and everything.
Yeah.
And it seems like he's like looking at the blood and wiping it
That
off,
was
and
a good shot. Good
yeah,
reaction shot.
and
Yeah.
and it feels like that's when he like fully snapped because after
Mm.
that he's like
Mm.
he just comes up and he starts shooting. He shoots the other zombies and he just has this kind of
Uh,
dazed look, and Peter's like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Perfect, baby, perfect." Where he's got this kind of like dead, just
yeah.
like it feels like that's the moment he kind of like went totally
He's
nuts.
gone blood simple.
Yeah.
No, okay, so when does Ken Faree kind of wake him up, snap him out of it? That so
Oh yeah, no.
oh,
After that, he's like, he gets in the truck and he's like, "Oh, I forgot my bag. I forgot my
that's
bag.
right.
Damn it!" And he starts
Hmm.
flipping out, and you can tell he's kind of crazy then. And
Yeah.
then he's like, that's when he stops it, and he's like, grabs him by the shirt and is like, "You're not messing with your own life. You're messing with mine." And he's like,
Yep.
"Okay." And he's like, I'll calm down. I'll calm down." But he's kind of crazy by then at that point.
Yeah.
And then he gets bit when he goes to do the pull one of the other trucks when he's hot wiring the or he drops his bag when he's going into a truck, and then he jumps down to get the bag, and there's just zombies everywhere. And
and it gets caught. Yeah, his gun gets caught on the brake, and
yeah,
yeah.
and then he gets bitten in the arm, and then gets bitten in the leg,
And then there's a great shot of one of the zombies, sticking their finger in his leg, and that was a really good makeup effect because the blood just pops
oh,
out.
that was the after he's got the bandages. Yeah, I was gonna mention that. That was after.
That was after.
Yeah. That was so they finish up their work, even though he's like been bitten. He knows he's gonna die, but he's kind of crazy. And then they're like,
that's in the mall.
Yeah. Then they're giving him morphine, and
that's right.
and so then they have to, once they have the trucks, they have to lock all the doors and go around and then kill all the zombies. And so they have to wheel him around, Roger.
That's right.
Because his leg's messed up.
I got ahead of us a little bit. Yeah.
But he can hotwire the car, and they notice. Yeah, Fran notices. It was another thing where Fran's starting to, remember at that one point, she's like, I'm not just going to be den mother to you guys. I want to say what goes on. I want to learn how to fly the helicopter, which is another great character development, where she's like more just in the background, and then she kind of asserts herself more, learns how to fly the helicopter in case something happens to Steven, which is really smart. And then she notices there's a car out there when they're going to go and because they were going to try and run around and lock all the doors, just so the zombies couldn't get in between the truck and the glass. And she notices there's a car, and Roger hotwires it. They run out there, they wheel him, and when he's crawling in from the back, that zombie goes just like, I just thought that was the popping blood. I know what you're talking about. I always it looks so painful. Like grabs his wound that's wrapped up in this clean bandage, and it's like, I don't know how he did that. It was so,
I don't either.
It popped.
It's like it was a balloon in there or something, because it did. It popped, and it's Sweeney, man. He's so good. So that makes sense what you're saying, because at first I was like, why are they? It felt a little bit contrived. Like, why do they need this car? But actually, it kind of does make sense. He can hotwire it.
Yeah.
And it's just a way to evade the zombies quicker and safer.
Well, that's the thing, is they were going to do it.
Sense.
They were going to do it without. They didn't even think of the car when they went to go do it, and they're like, "There's too many zombies. We got to go back." And then she's like, "Well, what about the car?" Which is kind of cool.
That is cool.
And but it's funny that you brought that up, because I always think about that shot, that popping blood. It's so nasty.
Romero had to, and Savini had to have been pleased with that effect.
It just pops. I want to know.
So it had to. He had to have some kind of balloon or something in there.
It must have been
there's pressure, because when it breaches that cast, it just spurts.
Yeah, it must have been a condom way overfilled with blood that was just ready to go when you pushed on it. And I wonder if there was anything like on their finger or something to make it.
I don't know.
It was just so good.
Oh,
I have the feeling that just the way the movie was, it was one of those magic things that happened. Probably,
serendipity. Yeah. Yep.
and then the cool that the zombies are in between the trucks and the glass, the non-breakaway glass, and they're all like, they can't get the leverage to break through, which is cool because it's safety glass. But there's really something I didn't even notice until last time I watched it, was like the sound of their hands on the glass. There's like scenes where you could just hear them, because at one point they're, after they got everything sealed off, they're kind of like, another one of those great lines, why are they coming? And he's like, they want us. He's like, no, they want this place, because it was an important, this is kind of their place. They still remember in a way that they want to be here, which is the consumer commentary. But then that's when he has when there's no more room in hell line. That's when they're standing up on the
roof.
No, they're standing on the top floor. Actually, okay, they had gone around and they killed all the zombies after that. After
Okay,
they
and so they're
locked it.
loading them up. They're gonna and then they put them in the freezers,
Well, no,
deep freeze.
before that, they're standing on the balcony and they see all the dead bodies, and they're like, that's when they have the exposition or the, when there's no more, something my granddaddy used to say, there's no more room in hell. The
Yeah,
dead will walk the earth, which is just a fun, great horror movie line.
yeah.
And and so then they get all the bodies, put them in the freezer, and then they start getting into, enjoying this life in the mall or trying to enjoy it.
Okay, so it bothers me when they put the bodies in the freezer because you could see all the pristine meat and stuff that they could have enjoyed.
Yeah, I know. I was wondering about that
Are you
too.
guys going to be able to eat this meat if it's being contaminated by dead bodies?
I know. I was wondering the same thing too. It's
It was
like,
a dumb little nitpicky thing, but it made sense. They had to
but
store them somewhere.
yeah, I thought, maybe there's more than one freezer. There's a bunch of freezers.
Yeah.
It's funny when you watch movies, especially ones that you love. It's like really enjoying a movie requires you to fully buy into the reality of that movie, even if it's a weird David Lynch movie or a super realistic movie. You have to accept the reality that's being presented to you in order to enjoy it. And it's funny how when you're enjoying a movie and you see things that like irritate you, you try and like justify it in your mind. At least I do. Like I think I'll see something, I'm like, well, maybe it's because that happened, or maybe, and you try and like make it seem real in your mind so you can keep on enjoying the movie and not have it bug you too much.
Well, I was totally immersed. So it was more like, because I was putting myself in their shoes. It's like, okay, it almost could have been a moment of dialogue. It's like, well, do we want to store them in here? This is our food source.
Right.
And so it's like the logistics of just trying to sustain living in that mall. But it's like they kind of had to, unless they threw all the bodies outside.
Yeah.
So storing them is probably the right way, but it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like the most sanitary, but they did have to get rid of the bodies. And I'm glad that was in the script. It was like they made notice that this is going to get rank, in here.
Yeah.
There's a problem.
I think it's rational to think as a mall with a bunch of different food places, and so there's more than one freezer.
Yes.
So they put them in that one freezer, and then they use the other freezers for their other stuff. But then they're going, and that's where there is like a nice break in the film that I remember when I was younger. It seemed a little like, is this getting too long? I remember, especially at the midnight screenings, where it's like, but it's a nice, good break for a good amount of time, I think. And that's when they're just getting all the nice clothes. There's the great scene in the bank where they're just grabbing all the money. He's like, you never know. And they pose for the pose. That's like a great, brilliant shot where they're holding the money at the bank camera and posing for a picture. It's genius. But then they're like, fix their little apartment up there and everything and getting all settled. And then, Fran's pregnant. I forgot about that part. That's always, anytime there's babies involved in a movie, I'm just like, I don't even want to think about that.
Yeah.
What kind of life is a baby going to have in that world? But that adds this element of like, you need to, of like, something has to be done here. You want them to survive even more because she's pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that it almost could have been, the movie almost could be a little bit long, but maybe not, because that whole moment where you're talking about is all almost like a rest.
Before a big crazy
moment. Yeah. So that contrast is actually aesthetically very sound.
Yeah.
You need to have that contrast.
Yeah, you need it.
So it's like, I'm glad it's that. He's pushing it.
Right. Yeah,
smart.
exactly.
And again, good editing. So
yeah,
I think it's very necessary.
But there's they're all dressing up nice. But you could see that they're like, they have everything, all they could need, but they're
getting bored.
They're getting
jaded and bored, and it's not,
which is great. It's so smart and it's so great. But you know what? Another scene that is simple, but it always stuck out to me, and I just think it's a great, well shot scene, and it's simple, and it's really more of a transition scene where Peter's up on the roof playing racquetball. Do you remember that?
Mhm. Yep.
And the way it's shot is so well done, where he's playing racquetball on there, and then he goes. Just the way that if you watch it again, just watch how it's shot. It's like got these real. He like leans into the camera after he takes the swing, and he kind of comes into focus, and he's all sweaty. It's really well shot and edited. But then he grabs his bag, and then the ball rolls off the roof and then drops down, and you see like it kind of like puts you back into, oh shit, they're in a world with zombies. You know, it's they're not just,
They're still there.
yeah. And I really kind of loved that scene.
That was good.
So after this lull, they got their kind of life situated. Roger died, became a zombie. That's a pretty good scene too, where he's kind of going crazy and
you know, I swear in my memory there was a squib shot of him getting killed. And then I was surprised that there wasn't. And actually, I'm glad there wasn't.
Yeah,
it was just a sound effect.
You're probably thinking of Steven, because he gets when he becomes a zombie at the end.
He gets a
major
squib.
Nice.
Yeah, that's right. And I like how Roger. I like his facial expression as he's coming.
Oh yeah, it's so creepy.
Blanket. It's kind of like a babe, you know, like a babe just waking up to this new world. Really good.
And I do, you know, it as much as like, it's funny because the heroes all get like really good stretch and stipple makeups and extra time. I'm glad, you know, because ultimately if they had all the money, they'd be able to make everybody kind of like that. But I kind of like that the heroes, when they die, they get like extra love in the makeup department, because those are really, both of those I think are really cool makeups.
Well, and it gets back to Tom's background in theater. Because that was basic highlights and shadows makeup that he applied to him prior to the old age stipple.
Right.
And so and there was a shot, I can't remember, was it maybe in the documentary, of Flyboy before he had the stipple on, and that was a really good highlight and shadow makeup. And so it's like, Tom Savini
killed it. He's
got the chops.
Yeah,
he really did.
Yep.
And those are iconic, well-designed makeups.
Yep.
And, so Roger dying, that was
sad.
That was sad.
It was
but it was, you know, a good plot point.
Yeah.
It was needed.
Yeah.
It was needed.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was I think the shot was great, where he's laying in the bed, centered. It is very much like rising up from a tomb, kind of, or a birth.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's just so good. So then I guess we can keep going, because we're almost at the end. If you want to go a little bit, if you don't mind going a little bit
Not
longer,
at all.
Maybe another 20 minutes or something. Okay.
Sure.
Then then it really takes a change, which is also, I don't remember what the scene before that was, but you see these biker guys looking at the binoculars, the helicopter.
Yep.
Which I was thinking, it's like they should have just covered the helicopter up with a tarp or something instead of.
But then whenever they were doomed to be discovered, because they had to do the flying lessons.
Oh, that's true.
And the shot of the binoculars was I think of them landing. I think he was giving.
Oh,
her
right.
lessons.
Yeah, that's right.
And
so he teaches her to fly, and then she lands.
And you see the binocular shapes on the insert. And then it cuts to the guy and Tom Savini's great introduction.
He's great. He's also, he's really good in this. Like, his acting is great, I think.
He stole every scene he's in. He delivered the lines. He's a good actor. He delivered the lines. He's charismatic.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit funny when he flips the switchblade and it's combed. Tom Savini, man, he was big part of that movie.
It really,
and he's fun to watch. And so not only is he underrated, I think, as an effects guy, but as an actor, he always comes across as real, whatever he's in.
That's true.
I didn't want to see him get it when he died. He's such a great. He would have been the great villain to last the end.
That's true. I don't know. He had it coming though. He was chasing the hero around.
That's right.
But so
they're discovered by the gang.
Yes. And then they go and they blow that loading dock open. There's some loading dock where they have this huge explosion Oh, anyway, oh no, they first they talk to them. They have a radio going and they're talking to them saying, "Hey, there's only like three of us. What do you know,
Yeah.
let's be friends." And it's like, that was great too, where he's like, "How many of you down there? There's only three of us." And you hear all the bikers, laughing in the background. He's like, can it. That was pretty funny. But so then they decide to attack the mall because they didn't respond, but they would have attacked it anyway. And it's, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, I don't know, bikers coming down. It's a great shot where they're coming down the hill at night.
All the lights coming down at night. Yep.
Because you don't know how many there are until you see them, and it's like, oh shit. And yeah, so they go to put the bars down on all the cages down on all the stores just to make it harder on them. And then they're going to run back to the room. And then Steven has a stupid asshole moment and shoots one of them. Because they break
That's right.
They break in the loading dock. They start riding their motorcycles in. And those were like real, what was the name of that gang? The Pagans. They were real pagans that came to do that.
Wow.
Yeah. And they were saying they were really cool and nice. And, they were into it. With a couple actors, like Tom Savini but the guy, the last biker to get shot, that guy's a real biker. Remember the guy at the very end, and he's getting him with the scope. Peter's getting with the scope, and he kind of flips. He shoots him, and he kind of flips, does a flip. That guy was a real biker.
Yeah.
So then, anyway,
why was Flyboy? What? Okay, that's another. He kind of reverted back to his annoying insecurities. So
absolutely.
What was his intention there? Do you think
he was pissed that they did all this work and they came and ruined it? And he's like, "It's ours, and he shoots the guy like an idiot.
Yep.
But he paid the ultimate price for that. So then Peter's all like, "What are you doing?" And so then they start shooting back. Because they were just going to let them deal with the zombies and then they have to leave because they wouldn't be able to last too long down there with all those zombies. But since Steven shot at them, then they start shooting back at them and they're almost getting shot. And they're running around the mall and stuff. And there's great scenes of bikers just smashing TVs. And I love how they're stealing jewelry from the zombies. Like it's so taking like that one lady with all the pearls and jewelry, and they're like, it's so great. They're just looting the mall, of all this crap, and having a pie fights with zombies, which I thought was really funny. Some people didn't like that, but I thought that was pretty funny.
And it yeah, just seeing the motorcycles driving around inside the mall is kind of something you don't see.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, Blues Brothers when the car chases
totally.
go in a mall. And so that was kind of made me nervous knowing that they had to clean all that up at night. But that was effective. And then it starts getting into some good effects.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a bunch of.
Then they start attacking the zombies and stuff.
Yeah, there's the classic Savini knife in the head reverse gag, which is so great. That's a classic shot of the machete in the head, in the heady.
And it's a couple decapitations, a cut off hand, and real quick before I forget, and I don't think it's during the scene, but the screwdriver zombie.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was John Harrison. He's the guy who.
Oh, that's right.
Was the first assistant director or something on Day of the Dead.
He did the music for Day of the Dead.
And he did the music to Day of the Dead, which I love so much. I love that score. And he did the music to Creepshow.
Oh,
and then he directed the TV series of Dune.
That's right. And so
he's one of those guys that I just think is like really talented, and I've just always liked because he also. The Laurel group, that Laurel Entertainment, Michael Gornick and Richard P. Rubenstein, how they were responsible for Tales from the Dark Side, that TV series. Yeah. And John Harrison did the music to one of those episodes, and I remember really liking it.
That's so cool.
I had no idea he was the screwdriver zombie.
I didn't either until I watched
And then
the
until I watched that
documentary.
documentary, and then it wasn't. So I was really pleased to see that. But yeah, that was before the biker stuff. But
Yeah, that was just a great zombie kill, and that's fun.
yep,
It was only put in there because they had a continuity error. And,
yep,
he
yep.
had the jacket wrapped around his waist, and and he wasn't in the next scene, and so they stick
A
this.
great solution to that problem. That was perfect.
And
Yeah.
that's the kind of thing you could do in low budget, seat of your pants filmmaking. Like
Yep.
let's just do this real quick and have Savini make a retractable screwdriver with a straw or something, and
And that's where Tom really shines. You can
and
tell he's
yeah,
just so resourceful.
and it's a memorable
It is.
kill. You think of the screwdriver in the ear.
Ooh, but
So,
it does bother me though, because how do you keep the blood out of the ear
I
canal?
know. Probably had cotton in
Oh,
there
that's
or something.
horrible. He must have had to wash it out.
That we should talk about the blood a little bit quickly too. Is that the blood has been, it doesn't always photograph really bright, but a lot of it is very bright.
No, because we talked about it and I criticized it as looking like poster paint.
Right,
But
poster paint. Yeah,
but it wasn't as bad as I thought. Only certain scenes did
yeah,
it
yeah.
look kind of bad.
Right, right.
I'm
But
glad you mentioned that.
yeah, yeah. But just for people that didn't listen to our other makeup effects episode, is you should if you haven't, because it's really good. Or 2 episodes or 3. I don't know,
Three.
3 episodes. um, it was 3M stage blood made by the 3M company, which is kind of funny that, who knows how they made that blood, but it's weird that it photographs so bright, especially when you can make your own. I mean, this was 1970.
Why didn't Tom Savini make his own? Or I wonder if he did.
I know that he said he used the 3M blood. So it might've been one of
So he
those
must
things,
have
but
bought gallons and gallons of it.
yeah, yeah, it would have been, you could have made that really great Dick Smith blood formula, the kind of dark blood, but it really does work for the film. And even though it's bright, it adds to the extremeness and comic sensibility of the movie,
Totally.
comic book sensibility.
It matches because it wasn't like they had to achieve the utmost realism in how to depict a decaying or dead body.
Right.
He made an aesthetic choice out of necessity to paint them all gray, and I'm so glad he did. And it was an effective choice. And then I loved seeing the gray makeup, especially during the tenement scene and the pastel color. It just all kind of seemed to work. And so that blood being kind of just shy of being realistic worked. It just worked.
It just
had
worked.
a charm to it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's just, again, it's the magic of the movie, the way that happened to be okay, even though it wasn't optimal, but it worked in that movie. It's part of the magic. Yeah, it's funny, the zombie makeups too, where there's the big crowd makeups. That's where you start to see like skin color behind the ears, around the neck, where they didn't quite get the makeup on there all the way, and the really like rushed, just gray.
But that's a lot of makeup, though.
Oh, I know.
I mean, that's just a lot of work.
People on some days, apparently.
Yeah.
So I've been in those situations where I worked on Magic Mountain Halloween haunt when I was like 15 for Beinke when he was doing the Halloween haunt. They turned Magic Mountain into a, Halloween thing, and we just had to bust all these people doing makeups, just get them out of the chair. And it's like such a high pressure situation. I could see just like, okay, sponges, get the makeup on, get them out the door.
Yeah, and you're going to miss a spot behind the edge or wherever. So, yeah.
But it's like, that's what I meant by the only flaws of the movie are more budgetary, and they're not so bad that they ruin the whole movie, because the whole movie is so good that you can go like, I almost have like a fantasy, like digitally fixing any little thing like that where it's really bad, or like
No, we can't go there.
I know, it's a stupid idea, but or even like putting different music in at the end when he does like that superhero music, or he decides not to kill himself.
I know it,
That
but we know it can't be done undone.
I know, it's part of it. It's you have to accept it when you
You
love.
have to
It's
accept
just
it.
like when you love a person, you have to accept their flaws and all. It's the same thing
Yes.
with a movie. You have to accept it all. It's funny because George Romero addressed that in an interview. He's like, a lot of people think it's really corny, the stock library music, but I love it. He's like, I think it's really cool. So it's just funny that, especially that ending scene.
That's right. Oh, I love that you know it. That's
Oh
so
man,
good. You got it.
I got it all, man. I got it all up here.
That's great.
So
George, yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, I was just gonna insert that George Romero, how likable and yeah, how cool it would have been to work for
I
him,
know.
and how everyone had respect for him.
Yeah.
He was a calm presence on the set,
And
and
he
how important that is.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he was real collaborative. They were saying that he would take
Yep.
input from people, which is super cool. And somewhere I read that people like Scorsese, or it was I might have been in a different documentary. They all knew about him, and they were like respected him, like these big time directors like Martin Scorsese and stuff, because of what he did. He made these really cool movies with no money outside of the Hollywood system. And it's pretty cool to think he had the respect of his peers, like real directors,
Deservingly.
do these serious movies.
Yeah, deservingly.
Yeah.
Because yeah, what a feat. But yeah.
So we're almost through it. So bikers take over. Steven gets trapped in an elevator shaft because they turned the power off. Remember, he goes up to the elevator because that's where the air ducts are. When the bikers are coming into like J.C. Penney and they're kind of he's like running. He goes to the elevator. He goes up the shaft, and then then someone. Oh, it's because the lights were off. Someone turned the power off somehow. One of the bikers or something, and he's in there hiding. And then the power comes back on, and then the elevator starts going, and he drops his gun down the shaft, and he's like holding on and freaking out. And then these bikers come in.
They shoot him. Yeah.
They shoot him. And that's another great squib on the arm.
It is.
It's one of the best ones of the movie. It like shoots upward.
Yep.
It goes, and it goes on his face. It's so good.
Perfect.
It's so good.
It looked painful. Yeah. It probably did hurt.
Yeah, probably. But he was like shaking, really good kind of acting there too. Then they leave him and he's shot, and then he jumps down, talks to on the walkie to Peter. And he's like, just get up on the shaft and I'll come and get you. And then zombies come. The elevator opens, and the zombies come and attack him.
Yeah.
Bite him. He fights the zombies. It's another great scene, too, where he pushes them out, shooting him, blah, blah. And then the door's shut, and then it opens again. The door's shut, and then you go back to Peter, who goes back and heard his screams. No, he died. Peter goes back up. Tells Fran, like, maybe he's still alive. I heard gunshots. Mm-hmm. That time passes, and then it shows another. It's so good. It's so well done. A zombie's like pawing at the thing and hits the elevator button.
Great reveal.
And the door opens, and he's standing there.
Classic reveal.
So good. And he's like one of the coolest looking zombies. He's got that. I remember that rip out of the neck is so good. I remember really being impressed by that as a kid. Because just from a technical standpoint, like if you do a prosthetic of a wound, oftentimes it goes like that. Like you got the surface and then it kind of goes up and then down, like up, and it's like flared on the edges. Kind of like that one bullet with the wax we're talking about. And it's not. It's like he did a big prosthetic neck and just tore a piece out.
And it's a big cavity. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's a big cavity.
But it's like he just had a neck, a full it seemed like he had a whole neck covering
Uh-huh.
just so that there was no seam right around the edge or
I think you're right
no
because it
flare.
was.
And it's
It
wet looking, and it's
mhm.
like you can see his actual neck is covered with blood, but it looks like tissue. It doesn't look like you can see his
Yeah.
neck under there. It just looks like nasty, bloody tissue.
It's a great makeup.
It is great.
Yeah, because so his head's tilted to the
Yeah, yeah.
side, and that's part of the little mannerisms that the actor David Emge put to that, who really shines as a zombie.
Oh yeah, one of the best
Yeah,
zombies
so
ever.
he looks great, and then his performance, and his right leg, his gimp leg, foot, that's really
I
good.
know.
He did a great
And he's
job.
got the gun on his finger. That he's not
Yeah,
even
for
aware that he has this gun in his finger. So good. It's so good. And then it was like a latex stipple makeup, so it's
yep,
got the
over a
extra.
basic, highlights and shadow makeup, that kind of gray color. Yeah, really good, very iconic, great reveal.
Yeah.
And so that character really, and the actor, they really shine at that moment because that's a great way to go
Yep.
out.
It's you mentioned something about his acting early on,
Mhm.
and I did see a cut. I watched it. There's this one cut on YouTube that someone put up called, I think it's like they took every extra, because there's a few different cuts. There's like the con
Yeah.
cut, and there's the Italian cut, and then there's
Yep.
the US release. And I think they took every extra scene out of all the cuts and made one long movie. And it's like
I've
really,
got him in my box set. I just haven't
oh, okay.
watched it. Yeah.
Because there's one where there's a lot. The theatrical cut is definitely the best as far as a movie goes. But as a huge fan, I like seeing all the extra stuff they don't show. And there is one scene where after they lock the J.C. Penney door and they're banging on the door that whole scene where they kind of like figure out what they're going to do, and Flyboy did a good job, and they're like, "You did a good job, Flyboy."
Hmm.
You remember that scene?
Yeah.
So after that, they're like they're up there talking about, what to do next. And there's a scene with Steven, and his acting is not good. It's funny. It's like you see his, I don't know, weaknesses as an actor, I suppose. He goes like, "Yeah, we really did it. People shouldn't, it's not that hard. People act like, it's a big deal. We took care of them." And it's like, it wasn't very good. It's really good they cut that out. It's worth watching though,
Okay.
because then it's like, after seeing that, I was like, oh, it's like everything they kept in the US cut is actually really good of his acting. I was
Okay.
like, but
But in that documentary though, he did seem really excited about being a zombie.
yeah, he seemed
And
into
so he
it.
put a lot of
Surprised me.
thought into it.
Mhm.
And so it's like I really appreciate him now more because he kind of redeemed himself a little bit for
Yeah,
whatever
right.
criticisms. And because as a zombie, he was great.
Oh yeah.
And I still don't know how he does that to his ankle.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how he does it. But
The walk
it was
is
great.
amazing, and he's like skinny, so he's like kind of perfect.
Good bone structure for the
Yeah,
makeup. And so just a really
very,
good look.
very much like an classic EC zombie, EC
Yeah.
comic zombie. So anyway, he comes out as a zombie and leads the zombies to the fake wall they built that blocks
Mhm.
off their living area, and just starts scratching at it and chewing at it, and they kind of break the wall down, which is kind of, it doesn't bother me, but what bothered me about the later films is I don't really love the idea of zombies getting smart, and it's just a personal preference thing. I mean, I accept, I like Bub as a character in Day of the Dead, but to me, it's like it stops being scary when they can think more. It's
Oh,
more scary when they're just like, there's no reasoning,
mindless.
mindless. That's, to me,
Yeah.
that's a lot scarier. But it didn't bother me in Dawn. I could see like, it's just the idea like they're coming back to the mall because there's something in their memory, and the one zombie that's holding the gun the whole time, he's
Mhm.
like always looking at this gun, like the whole movie he's holding a rifle that he grabbed
Mm.
in an early shot, and they did really good with continuity where there's this zombie you keep seeing who's holding a gun with the barrel pointed right at his head, just walking around. It's pretty great. So he leads the zombies up. Oh, we didn't talk about the Hare Krishna zombies. Another great zombie
Oh, yeah.
that gets Fran.
The memorable zombies, the Hare Krishna zombie, the Haitian lady will get with the
Mhm.
jewelry that gets stripped, and there's a really heavy zombie that falls into the water, the
Oh
fountain.
yeah, yeah, yeah. In the bathing
God, he
suit.
looks like he's made of like rubber.
Yeah,
I don't eat
totally
his
solid
it's
rubber.
solid. And then there's the escalator zombie. Do you remember him? He's kind of memorable. He even came. He has a great dumb expression on his face, like a surprised expression on his face, and he's reoccurring. And then there's the woman in the white dress or whatever that she's on the poster, and she's a memorable
The
zombie. And
nurse?
they interview her
Oh
in that
yeah, the nurse.
documentary.
She's a
Yeah, the
nurse. Yeah,
nurse.
yeah,
The
yeah.
nurse. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
the
think I
white.
know. I
Yeah.
think I know the escalator zombie you're talking about. He's the guy that he was interviewed in the doc
Yes.
too. Yeah,
Yeah, because
and he
they're
makes
one
it
of the
to
more
the end.
prominent. Yep, he does.
You know, he always reminded me of, and I never have spoken this out loud because it never left my mind before. But do you remember that? This is so weird. Do you remember that TV show Soap from the
Yeah.
'70s?
Yeah.
There was a main actor in Soap that zombie that zombie reminded me of the main
Oh,
actor. I don't remember what his name was, but every time I see that guy, I think, oh, it's the guy from the zombie. That's the guy from Soap.
I remember soap, but I didn't like soap.
Yeah, I didn't like it either. I didn't like it either.
But
I was like,
it was like Barney Miller. I
yeah,
never got into Barney Miller either.
Barney
Or
Miller's pretty funny now.
No, wait, was Taxi? No, which one was? Yeah, it was Taxi. I never could get into, and Soap. There was a couple shows in the '70s that
Yeah,
I didn't click with,
yeah,
but I'll have to go back and
yeah.
see the
It's
actor.
yeah, because I can see him now. But anyway, so the other one is the I really liked was the funeral, the freshly dead made up. I don't know if you noticed it, but there's a shot of a guy who's got like makeup, rosy cheeks,
Oh,
and his flesh colored like
that's
he was at a funeral home and
yeah,
made up.
that's great.
Yeah,
That's
that's
should we should have saw more of those.
yeah. That was like a
Yeah,
Savini thing, I think. I think that was something he came up with, which is really
yeah.
cool. Um,
Hari Krishna, he
yeah,
was he was particularly annoying because he's the one that broke through first, right?
yeah. He's
Yep.
great. That's such a classic image at the
Wait,
heart.
okay, wait a minute. So
He was the when they went
was he
down.
chasing her
Yeah,
or was he chasing Flyboy?
the first time they went down and Flyboy left her without a gun, he wound his
Yeah,
way up to the room and was attacking her, and she's doing the
yeah,
flares and stuff. That was great.
yeah.
So anyway, zombies are coming into their little hideaway with one entrance, and Peter says, I don't want to go with you. Go to the helicopter. He tells Fran, and he's got a little Derringer. And if you
So
look,
why do you think he did that?
well, I could,
Just had enough.
yeah,
Just had enough.
I would think
The
so. It seems
futility.
so hopeless because they
Yeah,
finally found this amazing place, and the whole thing is just ruined, and they can't do that again with just the two of them.
yeah.
I could see like I'm at the end of my rope. It's also a horrifying situation.
Yeah.
I could kind of see that. Um, and so she's like, but that's kind of lame too, to leave her with a
Leave her.
kid,
Yep.
with a baby almost, 8 months
Yeah, it
in
was
or whatever.
almost a little bit of a forced moment,
Yeah.
but it does deliver the most excruciating scene for me because the it's so torturous to see him not leave,
Yeah.
to stay behind
Yeah.
and to hear that, safety is about to leave him because it's like had she taken off, how horrible that would have been.
Yeah.
He would have had to have killed himself.
Yeah. He's sitting there with the Derringer.
He was ready.
He's holding
Yeah.
and there is on a little, um, side note, if you look at the Derringer, when he puts it up to his head, you can see there's no hole in the gun.
Yeah.
Did you notice that? It's like a
did.
solid rubber
Yeah,
gun.
I did.
That's okay. That's okay.
But it did add it did add a moment of like tension because it
Yeah.
certainly worked on me
Yeah.
to think that he could escape and he didn't seize
Right.
that moment.
Yeah.
So that
I
was
if I was going to
a bit
be
manipulative, but it worked.
yeah. I thought it never really bothered me. One thing I thought is kind of unlikely is that all those zombies were able to climb up a ladder. That was a little
Mm.
bit much for me. Like it's not easy to climb up a ladder like that, but
Yeah.
it's a movie. You got to cut them a little bit of slack because they
Yeah.
all end up on the roof and they're following her up. But so he at the last minute he's about to shoot himself, and then he shoots the zombie breaks in the door, and he shoots the zombie instead, and decides to live.
And then the music.
And then the music. And it's not just the music that's funny, it's that he's doing all these karate kicks and stuff.
That's right.
He's like not just fighting all the other fights to them, they were hitting him with butts of guns and punching and stuff like that. He's doing like karate kicks in the air, totally like, it's hilarious. And he's like fighting zombies with karate. And then, so he runs up, gets it. He makes it the very last minute, gets in the helicopter. And I think the ending's great. I remember the theater when I first saw it, I was like, oh man, like it kind of felt like it left me hanging. But right now as an adult with my knowledge of film, I think it's kind of a great ending. Cause he's like,
I think so too.
How much fuel do you have? Not much. Okay, let's go. And then they fly off into the distance, and it's like, that's great. It's great. It's like a perfect ending point, and it's like you're left to wonder what happened. And the other weird little flaw at the ending is where it's dark, and then it kind of turns kind of light all of a sudden. It's like sun is coming up. It is dawn. It is the dawn of the dead at the last scene, and you can see it's like dark when she's first getting in, and they're coming up. And then they show like a cut to a shot of the sun, but it's still kind of dark. And then by the time he gets on the helicopter, it's like pretty bright outside.
I didn't catch it.
Oh, that's good.
But I think I do now. Remember?
Next time
you have to be somewhat forgiving.
Yeah,
but it's like, yeah, you're right.
$600,000 movie. Come on,
that's amazing. And then the end credits were great too, because play that music and cuts to all the shots in the mall.
It is excellent. Yeah, and that song again.
Yeah,
so good, so perfect,
so good.
It's so goofy and perfect.
So what did you feel like when you left the theater, having seen it for the first time?
Oh,
what was your reaction?
I felt so excited.
Cool.
Yeah, I felt like, I got to learn how to do this. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with my life. It's
wow.
I'm telling you, that was the big movie where after that, I was making myself up as a zombie all the time, doing like tissue paper and latex burns on my hands. I was like doing mortician wax. It's just mimicking the makeups I saw in that movie. And I found this. I remember I went to at the mall, at Old Town Mall in Torrance. It was a small mall, indoor mall, and they had a magic shop. Remember those cool magic shops with masks, Halloween masks? And that was the only place you can get makeup and fake blood and stuff too. It was so cool. And I found this liquid makeup that was that same color. And I bet you it was Stein's. It was Stein's liquid makeup. And I bet you anything it's what he used.
Was that kind of grayish off colors?
Yeah.
I wonder if Tom Savini just used that.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Or I don't, maybe not. But it was the same color, and it was liquid makeup. And so I remember there's pictures of me in that makeup as like 11, 12 years old, with all gray skin. So I was.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I was left totally inspired. It was really, really inspired by it. And and I've always loved it throughout my whole life. And it's just one of those comfort movies for me,
It didn't have the impact of me just simply because of timing. Because
how old were you?
I didn't see it in the theater. I think that would have helped a lot too.
Yeah.
So I was only like 10. No, wait. 78. I was 8.
Oh, wow.
8 or 9.
What did you think of the violence at that age?
No, I didn't see it then.
I see.
I saw it later on VHS, probably when I was 13 or so.
Oh, okay.
So it was prophecy that scarred me.
Right,
I wasn't prepared for that. But a lot of credit goes to Dario Argento.
Yeah, right.
Because he's the one that really helped he co-produced it to get the funding, so it could be on the scale that Romero wanted it to. Because
Right.
if you look at the credit list and all the extras, there were a lot of people that contributed. You
Yeah.
know, they probably didn't get paid,
They
but
got a
still,
dollar. They got a
yeah.
dollar and a donut. That's what they got paid, the zombie extras. But
But
everybody wanted to do it.
yeah, but he wrote. He did not compromise his script, and I think
Yeah.
Argento was there to kind of support him through that.
Yeah.
So he didn't worry about budget or constraints or anything, and so thank God Dario Argento,
Yeah. Yeah.
contributed.
He's the unsung hero of Dawn of the
He
Dead.
is.
You know, he was the one that was like, if you write this script, I'll come up with the money for it. And,
Man,
kind of made him come out to Italy to write the script. And he said he wrote it in
yeah,
like 3 weeks in this cool little apartment
so
they set him up in. And
that's so cool.
I
Yeah, they
know.
said they would go out to dinner every night, ate well. I mean, what a gift,
Yeah. Yeah.
Argento, man. That's I'm just
Yeah.
grateful to
Amazing.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. And, yeah, and the other thing we should mention too is they stuck to their guns with keeping it unrated instead of cutting it.
Yep.
And that's pretty smart, knowing that that's part of the strength of the film is
Yes.
that violence, and if they were can you imagine a cut version of Dawn of the Dead? Just doesn't.
No,
Without.
you needed that exploding head because it set the tone.
Yeah.
You weren't safe, and
Right.
and that's so necessary.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And, the other thing that we didn't talk about was the gut, ripping the guts open.
Oh yeah, on Teso, yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
Tasso,
Stavrakis or something.
Stavrakis, Tasso, yeah, because he's a good friend of Tom's. And,
Yeah.
I hate disemboweling scenes in movies.
It-
But this one didn't bother me because there wasn't much blood or anything
Yeah.
like that.
For me at the time, it was just like, I can't believe nothing like that had ever been shown. I think probably the only time something like that had been shown are on those, what's his name? Herschel Gordon Lewis movies from the 60s.
Yeah.
And those were kind of like, they used animal guts for that stuff, but those were so bad and so cheap. Those were really bad movies, like really poorly made movies.
I haven't seen any of those movies.
It's worth watching. It's just
Okay.
historically, to see kind of like, because those were really the first ultra gory movies, but they're so bad. They're so bad they're good too.
They scared me though, because whenever Fangoria would do articles on them, they always seemed like taboo or
Yeah, I know.
forbidden.
Yeah.
Almost like snuff films. Or
Yeah,
something,
right.
which
Yeah.
I think they were emulating.
Yeah.
But it was
Blood Feast and
yeah.
Wizard of Gore.
Mhm.
It's worth seeing. If they're worth seeing,
Curious now.
and they are funny. Like they're so bad they're funny. Like
Okay.
really bad. Like kind of in a Plan 9 from Outer Space way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they're not
They're-
as scary as I was building them up to
It
be.
tries to be scary. It's serious. That's why it's so funny. Is because they're trying to be scary, but it's just a super low budget, crappy grindhouse movie that's just no money and a bunch of animal guts.
But Tasso's disembowelment was well done.
It was good.
He did a foam latex appliance. They actually
Simple,
had hair.
yeah.
Did they have hair in it or whatever?
I don't
Might have.
remember. I don't remember if
Might
there was
have,
hair.
but it was pretty good.
Yeah. Simple, and just it's because it was animal guts, pig guts, that it looked so real.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like shocked at that. Like, oh my God, it's so gross. And then the other guy, who I think was the sound guy, who's the biker with the sombrero, who's carrying, which is another great thing, carrying around the mannequin the whole time. It's like running around with a mannequin, just like stole a mannequin and for who knows why. And he kept going to another totally bizarre scene that just worked and is so funny. It was where he kept trying to get his blood pressure taken.
His blood pressure. That's right.
Which is hilarious.
And then his arm gets
Yeah.
ripped off, and isn't it?
Yeah,
stuck
then
in
he gets attacked by he finally does it again, and they just rip his arm off, and then the whole cuff goes real tight on his arm that says 00 on the machine, and that's when they start like the whole feast of I know in the European cut too, there's a lot more gore in that scene. There's a lot more scenes of people eating like cow's legs, like bony
Mm.
cow's legs and guts and
Yeah, I don't want to see
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um,
Even Night of the Living Dead has some
I can't
harsh
watch that.
scenes where like a guy
I
eats
know.
you could tell he's eating like a bite out of a liver.
Ugh.
This is
Yeah.
nasty.
Yeah.
Sorry. That would,
But
make you sick.
Tasso Stavrakis is his name, and he's in that. Yeah, he's in that documentary on Tom Savini, and that's how I remember that. Their friendship and whatnot. So
Oh,
very cool.
you know what else is cool about that documentary is that they have time lapses of the makeups. I was surprised. Like, there's like there's time lapses of them doing the makeup, and it's like in 1977 or 78. What kind of camera did they use for a time lapse? It's like you could tell it's like set up like a weird 16 millimeter camera or 8 millimeter set up for a time lapse. You never see time lapse makeups from the 70s. I've never seen.
Right.
I can't think of another one. And I thought that was kind of cool too, where he's putting
Really
the
cool.
foam latex and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And so, it's kind of interesting. So Tom, it showed footage of Tom making up some of the zombies. And then he would actually get the whole blood bottle. Did you notice? And he pour the whole thing. It's like, oh, well, good.
I mean, there's something to be said about something to be said about let it drip the way it wants to. Don't get too picky about it.
Yep.
Just pour it on. And I thought that was pretty funny too. Yeah. Well,
but Tom Savini, though, really, I mean, he really deserves a lot of credit. Just the immense amount of work, the support he always gives George Romero, his ability to not only act in the movie but to do the stunt work.
Yeah, he did stunts too.
And I keep thinking about that scene where he was supposed to drive through a glass window on a motorcycle, and he described how that phony glass that they poured up was actually got thick on one side.
Yeah, way too thick.
It wasn't completely level.
Yep.
And he drove through that, and that's how people get killed on movie shoots.
Yep.
And so it's like, what a sport, man.
Again, though, that's the magic coming through that he didn't get killed. Because you can see it. You can see if you watch that scene, you can see it's like really thick.
Yeah.
Like super dangerous. Even the way they blew the loading dock, where they talk about how they kind of totally blew the ceiling apart, like the explosives were way too strong.
Oh,
and
that's right.
they damaged that's another cool thing I love is I don't know if you remember this, but right around that time in the movie, they're like throwing hand grenades, and you see like a zombie from behind just like gets like the whole front is like flames are coming off, and he's kind of like gets flying back into the camera. It's a really great shot of
it was a dummy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was it is a great shot. I remember that.
I've had dreams of that with that shot in it, because it just stuck in my head so much. Like it looks so real, and just the way it's like jerks back.
So so Savini had to do he had to have enough makeup to apply to all the extras, and then the principal characters, and then the gags, and then the bodies. Bodies that had to. I mean, a lot of work. A lot of work.
Yeah, I think there was one from if I remember correctly from the Grand Illusions book, because I got it when it was called Grand Illusions, and then I also have the
Bizarro.
Yeah.
That's when I have Bizarro.
Yeah. I think he said they had one dummy that they used for all the. Anytime you see someone get run over, it was the same dummy.
Yeah, it looked good.
Yeah,
sometimes dummies don't look good because Ken Free throws one over the railing on the top floor. And it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
so it was jointed and everything.
Yeah.
But I love that it was influential to you. And it was a slow burn for me, but I so appreciate rewatching it because I have more, I like it even more and have
Yeah.
more respect for it. And man, I just sure have respect for George Romero.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say anybody who, if you've listened to this and you haven't watched the movie, it's on YouTube. And that's the other thing. It's, you can't even stream it anywhere. It's like they only have it, you can get the DVD box set like you have. And then there's a UK box set that's for a region. You have to get a special region 0 or region free
Oh,
DVD player, which I got just for that
uh-huh.
box set.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like a 4K version of the Blu-ray of it, and
So what's the deal? Why? You're
I
right.
don't.
I don't think I've ever seen it on any kind of streaming channel.
Yeah, it's something with something. It's Richard. I think it's Richard Rubenstein
Rubenstein's?
who has just this really high price on licensing for
Oh,
some reason. Like something happened. I don't know where I saw this. I saw this because I was doing some research for this. I saw this them talking about it, or I read on some video or something. They had some project that totally collapsed, and he lost all kinds of money. So he ended up, as a way to try and make up for it, he raised the price of
mm,
the fee, licensing fee, something like
okay.
that.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, like
weird
that
though because it's
happened.
like I'm glad it's on YouTube because you can't see it anywhere else other than the DVD.
I never watch movies on YouTube.
Yeah,
Something about it. I always feel like they're going to edit it or anything, but it's totally unedited.
yeah, yeah, and it's cool
Oh,
because they have all the different versions and they look good. Like they're 4K. There's a couple that are not very good looking, but yes, a couple of them are totally HD.
would you
Great.
recommend at all watching some of the other versions, or maybe just stick to the theatrical cut?
I mean, I would say for if you're new to it, I would say theatrical cut is
Okay.
the best cut. But again, I'm such a fan. I'll watch any version of it.
Yeah.
The European cut. Did you see the European one?
Nope. Nope. That's kind of because I want to know if I
Yeah, you
should
should
maybe
watch it.
check them out.
Yeah, it's different. It's not as funny. It's like there's less of the canned music and more of goblin music,
Oh.
and it's not quite as the humor isn't. It's not as funny as the Romero version. It's weird. It's a little more
Hmm.
dark and serious.
Interesting.
Yeah, there's a whole. You have to see it because there's a whole
Okay.
scene in the beginning where remember when they first meet up to get on the helicopter at the dock.
Mhm.
There's a whole scene with Joe Pilato from Day of the Dead.
I saw his name on the credits, and I
Yeah.
didn't remember seeing him, so that's where he was.
Yeah, he's
He was
like,
cut out of the movie.
yeah, his whole scene. And it's kind of a long scene
Oh.
where he's like kind of a bad cop.
Oh, I kind of want to see this. I want to see what he looks like as
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Joe
You got to
Pilato.
see it. It's great. It's great.
Okay, I will.
And it does add some, it adds, in a way, it makes the movie, the movie's already long. And so I could see why they cut it. But it does add a little more character development. Like,
Okay.
the scene where Steven almost shoots Peter, and he walks up with him with the gun. And he says, "Never point a gun at anybody."
Yeah.
Scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
That scene in the U.S. cut, he just kind of after he goes, "Isn't it?" And he just kind of walks off, and then he's all scared with Fran. In the longer version, he like goes, helps him up, and then kind of like hits him on the like a friendly hit on the shoulder. So
Mm.
it's kind of like it makes that moment. It's more subtle that he's not just a total mean asshole that would point a gun in a guy's face. He kind of like makes it like it's cool, man. You know what I mean? And it's like a
Oh.
subtle difference. So there's like things like that in it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
you gotta, and it's got more zombie goblin music in it too. So
Very cool. Very cool.
wow, I think we covered it. That was pretty great. Can you think? I'm sure I'm going to think of things that we
Well,
missed, but
I just go through my notes. I don't I think we covered it. Yeah, yeah. Michael Gornick is the
all
cinematographer,
right, yep,
and he's part of that Laurel
yep.
entertainment company, and so yeah, I think we got it.
I like the look
And
of the movie too. The cinematography, it's very kind of like
so,
sterile, and it gives it that
yeah.
mall feel, you know?
And it wasn't overly, yeah, nothing was overdone, overlit, or, I mean, it
Yep.
kept it very grounded in reality. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So Michael Gornick did a great job. And I think that's it. Richard P. Rubenstein, producer, I don't know what to say about him other than I'm glad he went on and did the Tales from the Dark Side
Yeah,
series.
he also was like in that documentary, he's like, let George have full control of the movie, which is kind of amazing too.
That is amazing.
You
Yeah,
know,
that is amazing.
as long as you
So,
stay within the budget, you can do whatever you want.
yeah,
He didn't pressure him to get the R rating too, which is really great.
what a what a beautiful little creation that movie is.
Yeah, and it's so great that they were vindicated. They stuck to their guns,
They did.
unrated, and
Yeah,
then they talk about the first time they pull up, they're driving to go see the movie premiere, and they see a line around the block, and they're like, God, I wonder what movie that's for, and it's for their movie. But they didn't
yeah,
even realize it. It was like a huge
yeah.
hit right off the bat, and it made a ton of money. So it's nice,
When,
especially after Night didn't make shit for them because of the copyright issue. And so they finally, hopefully, made some money off of Dawn.
yeah, yeah. When you saw it in the theater, was it were there a lot of people? Do you remember the actual audience experience?
I don't remember. I don't remember. I kind of
Did you
think there was probably a good amount of people in there, but
what did your dad think about it?
he liked it. He liked it. He thought it was really, shockingly gross, but he was pretty cool about that stuff. He liked it. I think even though he wasn't like a horror guy as much as he was a sci-fi guy. I think there was enough like action and other stuff, and he's got a weird sense of humor. He had a weird sense of humor, so he appreciated a lot of the funny stuff in it. I think he's the kind of guy that would be like in the theater, the helicopter zombie get his head chopped off. He'd go like, "Oh God!" He was the kind of guy that would like
Oh,
yell
good.
out like that.
Oh, good. No,
So
that's so cool.
I think it was kind of like at the end, he's like, what are these movies you're bringing me to? These little kid is telling, kind of getting me to see these movies. Like, what the hell? In a
So
funny way.
you mainly learned about it coming out through monster magazines because Famous
It
Monsters
must have,
probably had
it
some
must have
ads
been,
because there couldn't have been a big marketing budget, so it's
and
like you probably didn't see a lot of commercials for it
I
or
think in
anything,
the
did you?
newspaper, yeah, I remember seeing a commercial for it. And I don't know if it was at a drive-in for another movie or if that
Mm,
was I know it's because I saw Zombie. I saw the trailer for Zombie, and I think that might have been at the drive-in. It may have been on TV,
mm.
and it was like every week you when you look at the newspaper in the movie
That's
section.
right.
I used to and
Yeah,
see what the new movies were, and so I'm sure I saw it. I knew George Romero just from
from the creator of Night of the Living
yeah.
Dead.
That's all you need
Yeah.
to tell me.
Oh, that's so neat. That's so cool.
And I'm sure it was just a little ad. Same with the Nightmare on Elm Street I told you about, where it was like a tiny little ad in the paper. It said Wes Craven's Nightmare on Elm Street. And I got my dad to take me to see that. And there was nobody, and it was before it was a hit. It was like me
Oh,
and him and a couple other people. And I was like, this movie's amazing. And nobody knows about it. And then like a
it
couple of weeks later,
exploded.
it exploded and became this huge
Yeah.
hit. Yeah.
Oh,
So cool.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we did it justice. I appreciate you
Man, I'm just glad you
letting.
invited me to do this because I got to revisit it and I
Yeah,
bought that box set. So yeah, and
yeah, that's a good box set.
just appreciate George Romero.
Yes,
So
George
very
Romero
cool.
Appreciation Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was fun. It was super fun. I've been wanting to do this for so long. So I hope
Oh,
everybody.
you're welcome. You. And my cough, I didn't cough the entire
I
time, so I
know.
must have been
Good.
really into it.
Good
So
for you. Appreciate it. I wouldn't have minded, but yeah. Well, we'll have to. We've got other things. Ryan and I have some other ideas that we're going to come and talk about on the show, and other movies also.
oh
We
yeah,
we've got some.
absolutely.
So Ryan will be back. This is the little turning into its own little feature on the Dark Arts Society podcast. Me and Ryan talking about movies or other weird things. So he'll be back. And yeah, for sure. And yeah, thanks again
Thank you
for coming on. That was great.
My pleasure.
And just say goodbye to the audience.
All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
All right, thank you, everybody. See you next week.